What is going on? What is going on, guys? This is your man, Real Deal Steven Steele, coming to you live, going up, going up, going up. On a Thursday, guys. What is going on? Good to see you. Good to see you. A lot of members in the chat. A lot of members in the chat tonight. Good to see you. Good to see the core. Before we get started, if you could just smash that like button, it takes a split second of your time. Doesn't cost you a dime. Number one thing you can do to help the channel out. And if you're brand new here, you are watching Steven Steele Live. I am Steven Steele. It's great to have you guys with us. Who do we have in the chat tonight? We've got John Woods. We've got Nurse Terry Reed. We got Slay Blaze. We got the Zombie Doge Army. We got Bang Stun 7-1. Larry Ramirez. Alan Schneider. Am I missing anyone that's active in the chat right now? Dylan McDougall, good to see you, Dylan. Scott Herforth, the Beef Supreme, and of course the Zombie Doge Army. And great to see you guys. Got an awesome show lined up for you guys tonight, with some very interesting guests as well. A lot to talk about, and a wide variety of topics tonight, and including some Doge news, which we will get to first and foremost, and some general cryptocurrency news as well. So just strap in, get comfortable, and we're gonna just get down to it, boppers. Can you dig it? Can you dig it? A lot to be excited about, a lot to be optimistic about going on in the not only throughout cryptocurrency, but specifically Doge. First and foremost, at the top of the news, this is kind of a funny story. Most people aren't really even aware of what's going. We've got there's this token that came out called Doge 2.0, and it's just another one of these kind of BSC tokenomics kind of high risk kind of BSC token kind of operations. And they named their project Dogecoin 2.0, which implies with that name that it's a second version, or what they call an improved version of Dogecoin. Well, the Dogecoin Foundation has cracked down on these guys since the Dogecoin Foundation is formed and said, threatening legal action, right? The Dogecoin Foundation issued a stern warning against these guys and said that the organization was support for Dogecoin's core developers and the projects make use of it was reestablished after 6 years. Okay, so they issued a cease and desist and asked them to change their name. And the Dogecoin Foundation notes that Dogecoin 2.0 has no connection, no relation with Dogecoin. Furthermore, the organization already purportedly mobilized its brand protection lawyers to contract the developers of the Dogecoin 2.0 product. And the CEO, or the guy that created Dogecoin 2.0, he's taken this interesting pivot where he is positioning himself to be the little guy, the small guy that's getting beat up by what he calls billionaires like Vitalik, Buterin, and the establishment. I'm like, bro, I know you're trying to position it that way, but you're the one that named your project Dogecoin 2.0. Nobody would know who you are. Nobody would be talking about your project if you didn't name it what you did. The only reason why anyone's even paying attention to this project at all is because he's ripping off the branding from Dogecoin. I mean, let's be real here. And that's the fundamental reason why he wants to retain the name, right? Why he wants to retain the name. So, and if he's so confident behind the fundamentals of his token, then he shouldn't be too scared of a name change. But he knows that he doesn't have really much to stand on beyond him naming his project Dogecoin 2.0. So I totally support what the Dogecoin Foundation is doing here. I totally think they're well within their rights to be handling it the way they are. And hopefully it strikes a little bit of a healthy fear into others who might want to impersonate or, basically steal from Doge's branding for their own nefarious purposes. Anyway, at this time, I would like to bring in my co-hostess with the mostest, the lovely, the brilliant, Sadaf Jadran. Sadaf, how you doing?
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm all right. It's afternoon. Sadaf, we're in Sadaf's neck of the woods. She's coming to us live from Sydney, Australia. What's on Sadaf's agenda today? Having yourself a nice peanut butter and jelly over there?
No, I actually had eggs this morning, but every time when the show is on, it's literally just after the updates that we get in lockdown. So it's always good to just distract myself with this after receiving some updates.
Yeah. Indeed. So, what's going on, Casanova? What's up, Louis Santos? What's up, Truckin' All Day? Josh Rendell disavows. Good to see you guys. Let's see. I'm just going to get to some, keep knocking out and going through this kind of Doge-centric news cycle here, Sadaf, until our esteemed guest arrives.
Yeah.
So this next story here is Doge Labs to host Dogecoin nodes for blockchain infrastructural support. And this comes courtesy of Yahoo Finance. The company announced plans to host and deploy several nodes to provide infrastructure support to the Dogecoin blockchain network at its Tulsa Labs facilities. The main purpose of a blockchain node is to verify the validity of each succeeding batch of network transactions called blocks. Blockchain nodes store a complete copy of the distributed ledger and are responsible for the reliability of stored data. Nodes are used by developers for building blockchain-based applications. A full node is a program that fully validates transactions in blocks. Almost all full nodes help the Dogecoin network by accepting transaction and blocks from other full nodes. I was explaining all this last night, so it's a little derivative off of that. But the Doge Lab is seeking investment partners interested in helping back the Doge protocol project. So there's a huge undertaking going on in Tulsa right now through Doge Labs that is very effective in getting those additional nodes going. And then, from what I understand, the entire kind of public effort to create more nodes is going very well. It's going very well, and the update consequentially is coming together pretty nicely from what I understand. So nothing really more to say about that. Let's see what else here. Oh, this is huge, tremendous news here. Vitalik Buterin wants to see Dogecoin adopt POS, and we found this out specifically through a response on Twitter that Vitalik Buterin issued on kind of a Q&A that he had there last night. Dogecoin might be a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, but Vitalik Buterin hopes it will resemble something closer to Ethereum. Ethereum co-founder opened up on a Twitter thread Q&A to the accounts he follows on the social media platform, and the topics of discussion ran the gamut. One of his followers, Zhu Su, wanted to hear Buterin's thoughts on the popular coin, Dogecoin. Buterin is no stranger to Dogecoin. In fact, he was recently named blockchain advisor of the Dogecoin Foundation. When he was asked about the meme coin project, it's no surprise Buterin addressed one theme that is expected to catapult the blockchain he architected Ethereum to another level, a proof of stake consensus algorithm. Okay. Ethereum is in the process of transitioning from proof of work to proof of stake, which will provide greater scalability and lead to lower fees of the network. Dogecoin is a proof of work cryptocurrency that uses electricity for mining new coins. So Vitalik Buterin, these are his exact words as of last night. So listen very carefully. Personally, I hope that Doge can switch to a POS model soon, perhaps using Ethereum code. I also hope they don't cancel the 5 billion soft cap per year. He just said 5B/year annual POW issuance, but in layman's terms, Vitalik wants to maintain the 5 billion soft cap already in place for Dogecoin. Instead, put it in some kind of DAO that funds global public goods would fit well with Dogecoin's non-greedy, wholesome ethos. So I thought it was a pretty solid answer. I thought it was pretty cool of him. And this also shows how on board and how serious Vitalik Buterin is about his role as the new Dogecoin blockchain advisor. Okay, this is very revealing. This shows how seriously and how much thought that Vitalik Buterin is putting into Dogecoin. So anyone that doubted that or just thought that was hearsay or kind of a joke, it's not a joke. The relationship between Dogecoin, the Dogecoin developer team, and Vitalik Buterin is very close. It's a very close one. It's very serious. I mean, we're not that serious. It's Dogecoin. It's dog money, right? But it's as serious as it can be. So I think this is super encouraging. I think this is great news. I think that Mr. Buterin's suggestions for Dogecoin to this capacity are good ones. I think they are good ones. I think he fully gets it. He understands the structuring of it, and to the degree that it's not only going to be done in the most advantageous ways for investors and supporters of Dogecoin, but also in the spirit of Dogecoin. So it's great it's great to see that both of those things aren't mutually exclusive, and somebody in the blockchain advisor position now that fully understands that. And Vitalik Buterin is one of the great minds of our time. I mean, he's clearly a genius, and he's the predominant creator of Ethereum, right? So this is this is huge news. So and also, if anyone feels compelled to super chat throughout the length of this episode, that's obviously hugely appreciated for the time and efforts put in. Feel free to ask myself whatever questions you like, or my esteemed co-host or guests coming in. Speaking of which, Katherine, are you with us? I don't think
I am.
She is.
With you.
I am with you. I am with you. Excellent. Good to have you back, Katherine. It's been a few months.
It has. It's nice to be back. Really enjoyed being on your show last time.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you accepted my re-invitation and get you back in the mix here. I really enjoyed having you on last time, and so it's an honor to have you back on. And I'm going to introduce to you to my co-host, Sadaf Jadran, Katherine Brodsky.
Hi, Katherine. How are you?
I am good. How are you? You're in Australia. I hear you have a very limited radius of movement. Is that correct?
It is correct.
To put it mildly, right, Sadaf?
From my bed to the fridge. That's about all.
That's all you really need, though.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. She's been kind of lamenting and venting to the rest of us what the conditions are over there right now. It's probably hard not to. Movies you don't want to watch right now, Sadaf, is The Shining. Do not watch The Shining right now.
Oh really?
Yeah, don't watch anything that's going to exasperate your cabin fever.
Do you guys in Australia, do you lock yourselves in with different kangaroos? Is that like just part of the conservation program?
To be honest, I think the kangaroos are locked up as well.
Really?
Yeah, I mentioned the last time on the show, I'm not even seeing any birds in the sky, so I think everyone's in lockdown here.
Well, you wouldn't think that they would respond to lockdown, but you know, the animals in Australia are clearly very well trained, very polite and civilized.
Yes, that's definitely the case here.
Wait, they have the frickin' kangaroos on lockdown?
No, it's like I explained on the last show. It's just like you don't see anything out here, so.
Oh right.
It's probably just safe to assume they're probably in lockdown as well.
They probably are in lockdown. You know, this is the Australian way.
Well, good to know that. You guys care about us.
Yeah, well, Commonwealth, you know.
It's starting to feel like we're very alone here.
Yeah. I mean, you guys are uniquely positioned to be experiencing something the pretty much the rest of the Western world is not, right? So it's just it's an interesting experiment to to observe, but you're the one living it. So,
Part of the experiment.
Well, we'll see what the data shows in 6 months to see if the efforts were all worth it, Sadaf.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm sure if the data shows that it's not helping, I'm sure your government will quickly course correct and apologize to each and every one of you. Anyway,
Yeah, I'm sure
They're not Canadian, you know.
what's that? What's that, Sadaf?
I said I'm sure there'll be some sort of compensation since they're going crazy handing things out at the moment.
Yeah. It's one of those two. It's one of the two things. If you're gonna go that route, I think what also should come with that is kind of like a temporary UBI kind of situation where if you're gonna really just completely prevent people from running their businesses or going to work for super long periods of time, then you've really got to give people, in my opinion, you really got to give people a temporary universal basic income, or you're really just putting people in really inhumane conditions. And in my opinion, do you have any thoughts on that, Sadaf or Katherine?
I do. Well, they've done something. I mean, they gave some money in Canada, for example, that was sort of resembling that. And I don't know, I think also in the US perhaps, but then they were having trouble getting people to go back to work, especially if they were not earning very much. It's like, okay, yeah, go earn the same amount or slightly more perhaps and endanger your life and do work. I mean, people didn't really want to do that. So there's some issues around that, but I'm also watching so many places close down. I just discovered this amazing venue for live music and comedy, and the guy had to sell it for not very much because COVID had them shut down for about a year, and most businesses can't take it. So when government would introduce these rules, and I get it, but it's also like all these businesses were left to sort of fend for themselves, and then now that some of them are able to go back up, but they are having trouble finding labor.
Yeah, that's kind of like one of the double-edged swords of something like UBI. It's hard to expound this any further without getting more inherently political, but I don't mean to, but there is kind of like a concern with UBI wherein, and you kind of touched on it, Katherine, and not that I'm opposed to it on certain measures, particularly in temporary measures. I think it can be very helpful and effective, but for like a long-term model, one of the concerns that I have over it is that it inherently demotivates people from just hustling hard, right? And grinding out. And I think that's an essential part of what builds societies. So that's always a concern of mine when I hear about long-term permanent UBI. What do you think, Katherine?
Well, to be a devil's advocate, I honestly don't know if it's the right thing or not, and I've had some interactions with Andrew Yang, who's obviously a big proponent of it. About it.
And I like Andrew. Yeah.
Yeah, I like him too. I like him because he's like a very, I think he strikes me as a pretty open-minded free thinker who's not, my side, other side. Like he's like, open to ideas, so I quite like him. But the idea of UBI, I'm not sure because on the positive side, I can see people saying, well, that gives people a safety blanket to allow them to maybe try new things, and maybe being able to try new things and not just try to survive, maybe that would lead to perhaps increased innovation, or perhaps people can create art. So there is some arguments for it, and of course, Andrew Yang's assertion is really that robots are going to come in and replace us, and I've been thinking about that a bit, and I think maybe like new job opportunities are going to come up. I think our world is changing, and of course, like we know, STEM fields are going to be, those kinds of jobs are going to be available. But not everyone's going to go into STEM or is capable or wants to. But perhaps we're just not quite visualizing the new opportunities that are going to come up as a result of perhaps some of these technological innovations. And, the UBI isn't so big. The amount is too small for people to really be like, yeah, I think I'm going to live happily ever after on this UBI. That's what, I think it was $1,500 or $1,000. I can't remember what the amount that was suggested. It's not enough to replace work, but where it's going to probably affect the most are, minimum wage jobs. And perhaps, we have to kind of look at our society and re-envision the kind of jobs that people do and don't do.
Yeah, I think that's pretty well stated. I forget what Andrew Yang's policy was. By the way, guys, if you're unfamiliar with Katherine, Katherine is a freelance journalist and writer. She's been in anything from Variety. Actually, I just saw you just had an article recently about the emerging film industry in Alberta, was it?
Yeah,
So she writes a lot for Variety. She's written for Esquire, Playboy, etc. And the reason why I've connected with Katherine and why I have her on the show is because she just has a very, in my opinion, a refreshingly unbiased, in my opinion, independently minded person that just and pretty likable as well. So for those reasons, that's how she got on my radar. And then I reached out to her. I just thought she'd be someone nice to have here in the mix on the show from time to time. So it's good to have her back. It's good to have her back. What I was about to say, Katherine, do you recall what the details of Andrew Yang's policy regarding UBI? Was it like a trade-off where the current welfare system would dissipate, or would UBI run in tandem with what we already have in that regard?
No, I think the suggestion from Andrew Yang was that it would eventually replace the welfare system. So, but perhaps because there's so many different tiers to it, from what I understand. So there's also disability and things like that. But yeah, the idea is that it would. So I wonder financially if that would actually make some sense. But I mean, we're also in a place where, at least in the U.S., there's no medical, healthcare, free healthcare for citizens. So, I wonder where the money would come from for all of this stuff. I mean, it's nice to be able to promise beautiful, wonderful things, and then, where do you get the money?
You mean someone pays for it?
Yeah, I think someone has to pay for it. I think
my God.
Called debt, and there is a limit to how much debt a country can have.
Oh, debt. Okay, I've heard about that. I think that's accumulated. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think the U.S. has a very large expense card.
Oh, yeah. You don't say. Slay Blaze coming in with a $10 super chat. Starting things off, first super chat of the night. I love it. Slay Blaze, thank you. Great show tonight. Excellent co-host and guest. Well, I concur, my friend, and I think that your super chat is a phenomenal one. Thank you so much, Slay Blaze, for your continued support of the channel. So yeah, in that context, though, to be fair, Andrew Yang's proposal isn't as terribly radical as it may seem on its face. If it's as you said, where it was templated to be more of a replacement for the current welfare system rather than another separate, a huge additional expense to what we already have.
I wonder how much welfare the average person gets who's on that program. And I mean, there's a limited number of people who are on welfare, and then if you put every single person, including, even millionaires and billionaires would get UBI, though I think they can opt out as well. So I imagine some people will just opt out, but
right.
but it goes to everyone.
Right.
I mean, it's an interesting idea, but it's also predicated on his thinking that machines are really going to replace humans, at least for certain kinds of jobs in the very near future.
Yeah, and what do you make of that in terms of Andrew Yang's predictions? Now, I think he is really onto something, and when not really any politicians were, in terms of at least getting people in the mode of thinking about a future full of AI and the consequences that has on the working class. So I think it's very healthy that he's at least put that on the table for people to start talking about. But I wonder how much of it, in your opinion, do you think he might be? I guess what I'm asking is, do you think Andrew Yang's concerns in the immediate future that the effect AI is going to have on society is it a bit hyperbole, or do you think it's fairly accurate?
I guess my feeling is that new jobs might be created. Something I was listening to a podcast recently and discovered that the amount that each, like if you go to school in the US, the amount that is invested in each student, sort of thing, the cost per student, I can't remember what the exact number was, but it was actually incredibly high. It was like something like $30,000-$40,000, which was shocking. I had no idea. And so I was thinking about that. I'm like, what if we restructure the model for schools where there's one teacher, you might, and the teacher would have a group of 5 students in their home, or something like that, and they're dedicated to teaching these 5 students. I mean, that's what, if each student gets $30,000, that's a lot of money, right? So I was thinking, like, there might be better ways to restructure existing jobs rather than robots just like replacing everything, or AI replacing everything. I think we're going to find that there's alternative ways of doing things. But some jobs we've already seen people lose, like, eventually we're going to have self-driving cars. Well, there goes the ride-sharing economy in terms of the drivers who are currently doing.
So it's funny, we were speaking about this on I think it was the previous show a day ago. Just an article Robert Goldman had written in 2011. And then he resurfaced that in 2017. But it basically predicts everything and anything that we're speaking about right now. But I think when it comes to AI and replacing jobs, I actually don't think the concept is new in the sense where, like, I remember 2010, I was at a call center, and I remember the operations team, we were talking about how we could, cut some costs and how we could restructure things. And I remember so many of the people, taking the service calls, were all so sure of the fact that they weren't going to lose their jobs. And, there's no way, and we're the heart of, we're the foundation here, we're the heart of where, like, the service comes from. But they did, and all of those jobs were offshored, and that's in a different sense. But it's just when people think something is impossible, it's always very possible. We offshored all of those roles, and then, like, the next few years after that, so 2 or 3 years after that, we started to implement bots, so chat bots that would start, and you see that everywhere now, right? So when you're on a website, or you call someone up, or you're trying to seek help, the bot is usually the first thing that comes and filters out where you should be in the waiting queue or in the service verticals. And I think the same thing is going to happen with, and it's AI really just improving itself. But I think in terms of what you said earlier, I 100% think that people should be concentrating on what kind of new jobs will come out of this, this new phase and this technological advancement. And most of that is things like, I know that you'll have a lot of people QAing what the bot spits out or what AI is doing. And then now I've noticed that in schools, one of the core subjects has started to become coding. So it's so beautiful to see that shift. And I don't think it's the end of the working life. I think it's the start of so many new opportunities.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, certain jobs will 100% disappear or go to AI machines. But it might give us, maybe it will free humanity to create other kinds of jobs. And I don't think, I don't think everyone's going to code. I don't think every single person is capable of it, but it gives us sort of a chance to evaluate what is it that we as humans bring to the table that's unique. And, the creativity that humans, maybe we'll have more artists, more creatives, that kind of thing. There's certain skills that I think is going to be a very long time before a machine can really replicate. But we've seen that throughout history. I mean, we've always innovated, and certain people have lost their jobs and had to sort of learn new skills. And I think it's very difficult for the people who are affected by it. It's not always such a great transition. And, sewing machines, for example, right? That's like the classic example. But, that meant that people found new things to do. And also, some skills, there's some appreciation by people for sort of artisanal creations, right? Things that are by hand that could be done by machines that has sort of a premium. And we value that for some reason as humans. So perhaps some of these things won't even go away, even if machines can do the job, because we have a value, like a tailor versus a machine that does the tailoring, right? Like people still will go to a tailor sometimes.
Do you know what I find extremely interesting is everything that gets automated, like stay in your household, right? So you've got a dishwasher now, you don't need to wash the dishes, you save some time there. You don't need to vacuum, there's, robos doing it themselves all around the house while you're sleeping. So all of these things that are designed to give us back the time, what is that time for? What are we meant to do with that time that we're getting back? So
I mean, that's such a great point, though, because we spend so much time or have spent so much time on things that really we don't need to be spending, like vacuuming. I mean, they're kind of like, I would consider these things a waste of our lives. So yes, what do we do with this time we get back? And unfortunately, I find that we often do waste time just doing different things.
Yeah, some really good points made by both of you there. And good night, Eric. Thanks for stopping by. And then thank you, Mr. X, for the super chat, $5. Good to see you. Excellent show and guests. Steelman, majorly underrated channel. Well, I won't argue with you there, Mr. X. Thank you for that. Josh Randell disavows. Coming in with a generous $20 super chat. Thank you, Josh. Appreciate you, man. Wait, what? Now we have two super cool hot chicks on the channel. The stream should have been called Unicorns Aren't Real. I don't mean to embarrass you, ladies, but thank you, Josh Randell. I appreciate your continued support. Katherine, I did have some questions for you that I wanted to get into here, so I'm just going to start firing them at you, okay?
Sure. Fire away.
And Sadat, feel free to chime in as well. So I noticed that you recently proposed a question on Twitter that got a lot of reaction. I think upwards of 4,000 likes or something. And it was a very simple question, right? But it obviously just it's a very simple question that just really took off, and which is fascinating, right? So, and that question was this: it was what you asked was, what causes ordinarily rational people to lose their grasp on rationality? So, my question to you is, what were some of the more interesting answers you got out of that, and what is your opinion on that question?
Oh, wow, what a great question. Yeah, I was really surprised by, it is a very simple question. I was really surprised how it kind of took off. We had 1.7, I'm just looking at 1.7 thousand responses, right? So that's a bit crazy. I think a lot of people, I mean, you know what? When I asked the question, what I was thinking about was actually, people don't realize this, but I was actually thinking about myself. And I thought, I'm generally pretty rational, but even I'm capable of losing my rationality.
Sure.
So what does that trigger, that emotionality? So a lot of people answered fear. That was a very, very popular response. A lot of people, I mean, if people were on the left, they blamed, Trump and other kinds of things.
Really?
People on the right, and Fox came up a lot.
Okay.
And and people on the right, Biden and leftism and all that stuff. So like they both like blaming each other, which is unfortunate because this was like the opposite of what the question was.
Right.
Fear was something they came up a lot. But one of the, I think some people talked about tribalism, and I think that's a really big thing. And then sort of the buy-in. If you buy into a certain idea and you spend a lot of time buying into it, then when it comes under fire, you tend to want to protect it and defend it, as opposed to just, look at something rationally and consider the facts. So it causes people to go into sort of an emotional place. A lot of people talked about social media. So a lot of answers. Some people ended up debating anarchy for some reason. So
that's
and then a lot of people and a lot of people also denied the fact that people are rational to begin with. There were a lot of people saying that you were assuming that there is such a thing as rationality and people are irrational as a rule, and they have to sort of focus on a rational path in order to remain, to be rational. Otherwise, they're overran by their emotions.
I don't know if I agree with that, because just by nature, I mean, the way our brains are set up, they're kind of systematic computers that are. That can get full of errors and aberrations along the journey, is kind of how I look at it. And then it's kind of up to us to kind of be aware on that and reach out when we need help with our computers.
Yes and no, because I think a lot of times people respond in sort of very emotional ways, and they're triggered.
Yes.
And if you say, like a good therapist will say, what are the facts of the situation, right? And if you look at the facts, they don't necessarily lead you to particular conclusions that people may be led to. So the reason that they are led to these conclusions is because there's something in them that makes them tell stories to themselves.
Yeah.
That are the narratives that don't necessarily have to do with the truth. So and that could be for so many different reasons, maybe personal reasons in their lives, or like, the tribalism, I think, does play a big part in it. If you see yourself as part of, I've definitely experienced that myself. If you see yourself as part of a certain tribe and you've always believed this one thing, and then it comes under fire, it's like you do want to protect it. There's like that natural impulse, because it's not the idea that's coming under fire, it's your identity, because that's how you've connected it in your mind. So I do think some people just generally have more rationality than other people, but it does take certain kind of work and consistency to like maintain that. And I think the biggest key to rationality is probably curiosity, because that's what leads you to look at the facts and explore ideas rather than just like defend conclusions. So I think that's really important. And then, we all can have moments of irrationality, but we need to be able to acknowledge that and be like, okay, this is why I'm thinking this. This is why I'm reacting in this like super emotional way. We're always going to have emotions, but if we're trying to get closer to the truth or something, I think curiosity is the most helpful tool.
Yeah, well stated there. And Scott, I see your super sticker with the pair mic drop, $5. Thank you. He says, not going to lie, I'm digging Katherine. Well, that's why I have her here, my friend. And Scott, it looks like you're having trouble purchasing regular super chats and you're only able to do stickers. If you super chat again through the super sticker, just tell me what your super chat message is below it, Scott. I'll read it out loud. I got you covered. Josh Randell is asking Sadaf, are you holding ADA? I went heavy in earlier this year. I believe it's a winner. What do you say, Sadaf?
I've been in since 20 cents, so yes, I am.
Yeah, Sadaf. Go ahead.
You're right. I was just thinking, as Katherine was speaking about that, it's such a double-edged sword, right? Because it makes me think about something we call the why analysis in business. But how far do you have to go back on a why analysis to get to the root cause of something, right? But also another term that it's commonly thrown around is something like, for example, when you think about sanity too much, you eventually start to go insane. But it's the truth, right? You focus so much on sanity and trying to make sense of it that eventually you go insane. It's such an interesting topic, and I think you could speak about it for so long. But that was the curiosity, I think, is I completely agree with that. And the fear is probably generally what causes people to leads people astray.
Right. Let me see. Next question I had for you. And it kind of dovetails off of something you said in relation to the answers to that tweet, Katherine. But and I noticed you've been discussing a lot more recently about the effect tribalism has on rationality. So we've seen this, in my opinion, get notably worse in recent years.
Yes.
To what would you attribute this to? Mainstream media, social media, institutional propaganda efforts through maybe perhaps college curriculums, a combination of all the aforementioned? What do you say?
Oh, I think definitely a combination of everything. I think I was a bit naive about how much social media has affected things. Because it's such a depersonalized medium where people can just shout things at each other, and it spreads very quickly and easily, and people then feel sort of significant, when people are liking their comments and things like that. And you would never say some of the things that people say on social media, they'd never say to a person if they were facing them face to face,
Right.
But they do it. So I think that contributed. I think educational institutions, 100%. I mean, they've completely been taken over by very specific ideologies instead of curiosity, really, which is what it should be. And you've got, I was reading today an article about somebody wrote a book, I think it's called Woke Inc. And I thought that was kind of interesting because he was exploring with very concrete examples how corporations, they sort of latch on to social justice causes. And sometimes that's I think there could be some positives there because it might raise awareness for a particular cause or maybe raise money. But he was, the writer was also talking about how these same institutions, while in North America, they may basically market these causes, in other countries, they're using slave labor, and they are being part of censorship and cooperating with very corrupt governments and doing terrible things, which is and so the idea that corporations that are really trying to make money and sell something. So spreading ideologies is actually very dangerous because one ideology might be fine, but another ideology might be completely, horrendous, and yet they have these massive reaches and impact when it's just a corporation. I think that's something that's interesting and worth exploring perhaps, but really we're seeing it in every part, and media for sure. Obviously, there's a lot of bias there. People often attack me, with that blue check mark accusations, automatically, right? Because they don't know who I am, what I'm about. But I get where their frustrations are coming from, though. But that's, there's a reason why that happens. And unfortunately, there is a sort of more of a focus on spreading ideologies amongst many people rather than just being, honest and exploring. And again, bringing it back to curiosity.
Yeah.
And just there's the tribalism of I've noticed, especially with the whole COVID situation, with the vaccinated and unvaccinated, regardless of what you think about it, the way that people are kind of venomous about it, I think is really, really not helpful in any way. And I don't, what's the usefulness of shaming someone or embarrassing or making fun of them? They're not going to change from that, never. So what's the impulse to do it? And we're seeing so much of that. So I'd like to see a different approach.
Yeah, go ahead.
Those are great points. All I think about when I see all of this censorship going on is the underlying insult to, I guess, my intelligence and my ability to flesh out facts and do my own research. Because the entire purpose of it is to remove content or facts or whatever it is that's incorrect by whoever the decision maker is, away from me, the reader, or the consumer, right? So it's I don't know if people see the insult in that, because I think that taking that away is doing the job for them. I think you should be able to have the facts presented to you regardless of what they are. So, and you should be able to make that decision yourself. But I feel like what's going on right now is someone saying, let me remove what I don't think belongs there, and you're just going to believe what's on there,
Absolutely.
Such an insult.
Well,
it's incredibly dangerous, right? Because it's like somebody's making that decision, and that somebody could be wrong, right?
And somebody isn't me.
Yeah, exactly. And I see it, especially with something also just in how you mentioned how the facts are presented. Like ivermectin is such a good example of it. The way that people are talking about it, it's like, okay, it's like you're taking horse dewormer. Whether you think that one should take this or not, which I can't, I have no expertise there, so I will not say. But the fact is, if the way that information should be presented, yes, it is a horse dewormer in certain form, but it's also created for humans, and it's in another, and it's used to kill certain parasites. And also there are studies it's currently being legitimately studied, and we don't know the results yet. And we're kind of looking at the results when they come in. But to just dismiss it and other people as idiots in that way, I think is completely unhelpful, rather than just using facts and really being honest about it, which I think then we can have a real conversation about it, and you might still criticize it. That's a legitimate thing, 100%. But not by mocking people, not by omitting the whole picture.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And just going forward, I have to navigate this topic with discretion when I. Due to YouTube's terms of service. So not that I don't appreciate what both of you ladies are saying here, I just have to navigate trepidatiously. So if we talk about the V, we'll just call it the jab, and then if we talk about the last medication that we could call it the dewormer, okay? Just so we kind of so we can stay out of the.
That in itself, again, is a great example of what we're saying.
I know. It's I completely concur. I mean, it's peak irony, right? It's peak irony. Josh Randell disavows, coming in again at $20 super chat. Thank you, Josh. Appreciate it. Donating on my behalf of the great and powerful zombie Doge army. Well, thank you, both of you then. Thank you, gentlemen. Question: is an incurious civilization doomed? Go ahead, take it away, Katherine.
Wow, what a great question. Yeah. I think curiosity is really what drives innovation, right? all the people who experiment, create medicine, people who create great recipes, even technology. I mean, they are curious. They're trying things because they're curious. So yes, I imagine that a civilization that lacks curiosity is it's due. I mean, it's not going to go forward. It might not die, but it's not going to progress. And I wonder if like societies where we've seen more innovation are societies that are generally more curious and more encouraging of that curiosity.
Yeah. Great answer. Kama DeLuffy coming in with a $2 super chat. Thank you, Luffy. Haven't seen you in the mix in a few, so it's good to see you back in. Aloha, what's good, Doge fam, Steele man, and best friends. Good to have you back in the mix. Good to have you back in the Doge family, and thanks for joining us on this little detour tonight. Esteban, welcome back, Esteban. $10 super chat. I'm here without you, Stephen. Wait, I feel like I have to read this in a kind of sentimental cadence. I'm here without you, Stephen, but you're still on my lonely mind. I think about you, Stephen, and I dream about you all the time. This is a lyric to a song that's eluding me right now. I'm here without you, Stephen. What is that song? But it's like something like.
I know that.
I know. I can't place it. It's something I don't listen to, but it's something that I've heard. I'm here without you, Stephen. But you're. What is it?
Is it 3 doors down here without you?
Yeah, that's what it's something like that. It's like, yeah, what? Okay, but you're still with me in my dreams. I thank you. I'm glad my little show is having such a profound impact on you, Esteban. Thank you for that super chat. Thank you so much. And there come the inevitable worm emojis up in the chat. Oh my goodness.
Oh no, what have we started?
Here we go, guys. Here we go. Let me see. Let me get back to my notes here, Katherine. I think I accidentally closed my tab. Okay, there it is. Okay, so so when I read that article from the Atlantic due to you posting it. And it was a really good article. It's titled "Social Codes Are Changing in Many Ways for the Better, but for those whose behavior does not adapt fast enough to the new norms, judgment can be swift and merciless." And I found it to be very well done. However, upon reading it, I couldn't help but think of one unintended flaw in the article. It seems to me that we are currently living in an era wherein a fair amount of the newest proposed societal norms strike me as quite radical and irrational and ideological. Do you think that's a fair statement, first of all? And if so, how do you propose we navigate through such heavy-handed agendas being foisted on the public?
Yeah, I mean, I do. You're not the only one who had that particular concern with the article. I think maybe the article is trying to be very, accessible to a lot of different people with different points of view. So I kind of get that. In terms of a solution, I mean, it's difficult. I think we're in a really difficult time. I think there are people who are seeing it for what it is. I think there's a lot of people who are afraid to speak up. I've always been somebody who's very open, kind of very, the phrase would be, live and let live, right?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, a lot of these things that we're seeing right now, these ideologies are very much not live and let live. It's like, I want to live a certain way and you better do as I say. And that's a problem. But I do think it's getting to such an absurd level that I think there will be pushback. I'm seeing more pushback. People tell me that they're seeing more pushback. So the answer to me is like not to be silent in the face of it, and because a lot of these ideologies are also happening, especially in schools, and you're seeing a lot more parents getting involved in their kids' education and pushing back against some of the stuff, and that's probably quite effective. But it's seeped into our society to a huge extent, so it makes it difficult, and navigating it also. I think when people are talking about like, I hate to use the words again, it's cancel culture, right? They are, people either deny that exists or say it's accountability culture. But when most people these days are talking about that in a negative way, they really aren't talking about people actually making terrible, errors in judgment or saying terrible things or doing terrible actions. It's really like the window, the Overton window of what's acceptable or not is constantly shifting, and people don't even know where it is, what is right, what isn't. And it becomes about sort of it has this like very narcissistic undertone to it. These like demands from people to behave a certain way and comply a certain way, and that are not consistent really with the values of like liberal values or tolerance or any of these things. And I don't know. I don't know what the solution is beyond just pushing back on it and saying like this is ridiculous, right? This is a little bit too far, and this is infringing on other people's rights at this point, rather than just providing freedoms and acceptance and tolerance.
Yeah, really, really well stated there. It gets to the point where some of these proposed ideologies that are getting aggressively foisted on the public through not only like mainstream news, but through culture in every mainstream aspect in terms of television, film, and literature and everything else. And it's one of these things too where it gets so aggressive, and it's obviously found its way into throughout classrooms as young as kindergarten classes even. And I would say that listen, I've always considered myself a very open-minded person, but personally, I do not see the inherent value or appropriateness of. You can literally go on this platform right now and see footage of drag queens twerking for kindergartners. Things like this. I just don't. I'm very open-minded, and this is nothing. Please, this is nothing against the trans community. Please do not take that as such. But I don't. To me, this sort of thing falls so outside of the like common sense sensibilities of appropriateness. I'm just left scratching my head sometimes. Do you have any thoughts, Katherine?
I do, but I will be in trouble if I say any of them.
Okay.
No, but that's really the problem, right? Like, yeah, no, I agree. I think some of these things have gone too far, but if you speak out against it, you get called things immediately, and it's
right.
Not true. But I guess the way to deal with it is like, shut up. It's not true. That's ridiculous, right? Not to give it any credibility or acceptance, and for other people to do the same thing. And because we need to have these discussions, whether you agree with, the twerking or not, like, you should be able to talk about it and say that, maybe there's a concern there. And somebody else can say, no, this is perfectly legitimate for X reason. The problem is we can't have certain conversations you're not allowed to have. And I think that's the bigger problem rather than just the twerking. though,
Yeah.
that's a problem. I mean, yeah, nothing personal towards drag queens.
Yeah.
But maybe twerking, reading a book, okay. Twerking, maybe not okay.
Yeah, I mean, even the reading book thing, not that I have a problem with just the premise of it, but to me it strikes me as a bit bizarre. It just strikes me as a bit bizarre to it just like the one thing that pops in my mind when I see these events popping up all around public libraries is like story time with drag queens for your toddler. It's just like, why? Like, why?
No,
why,
you're right.
Like, why is this a... Yeah, totally. It's just this... It's just so...
I can think of... Sorry, I can think of 1,000 other ways that you can teach diversity and and all of those topics, right? It doesn't need to be through the examples that you've mentioned. So it is crazy. And one of the things that recently popped up in a forum that I'm in was the consistency behind shutting down some of these alternative thoughts and spaces. And one really good example was, like, for example, on Reddit, like, you have so many things currently being shut down about the current situation that we're in. So you all know what that is. But then there's actual pages with 26,000 followers and contributors about topics such as RAPE and the love of RAPE and the love of PEDO. And those are all still functioning and active, and there's no flag there. So I think if we're going to flag, we need to be consistent, because then it does make the people who are curious and questioning all of this stuff even more curious. So yeah.
It feels like an issue of narcissism in many ways. There's this desire also to be like affirmed rather than accepted, because I get wanting to be accepted, not being discriminated against, like all of these things are great. But now it's become sort of like, no, you have to accept my exact reality. You have to affirm me. And there is a narcissistic, again, undertone to that, and being special in some way, and being, so I think a lot of these things are coming from that. And the more I've learned about narcissism, the more this seems to be very deeply rooted in that. And that
is one of my favorite topics. And Catherine, if you ever want to have a chat about that, I am fully experienced and
love it.
But what you just mentioned is so true. I remember when we were having the yes votes to gay marriages in Australia. I remember working for a major bank in Australia who was obviously pushing this, and it was a great incentive. But then what we got was an email from the CEO basically and like, don't quote me on this, but it went along the lines of, you have to vote yes, and if you don't, you're basically not human. And a lot of people were outraged by that, because there's one, like, you're promoting something that's very reasonable, and that generally people who have a bit of a brain on them would be pro any kind of love and any type of love in society. But there's no need to do exactly what you mentioned earlier, which is, you got to do this, and if you don't, you're an idiot.
Right.
And people really by that, and to come from a CEO on an email pushed out to all staff was extremely frightening, because there were people there with religious reasons, there were people there with all these other reasons, and they were basically told that, we're in the 21st century and you're an effing idiot if you don't agree. And I think that's so wrong.
Well, and what purpose does it really serve to call somebody an idiot, right? Yeah, it doesn't convince the person, like, oh my God, you think I'm an idiot? I'm really going to change my mind here, right? It's never, nobody's been changed. Yeah, no one's changed their mind by being attacked, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so it's
You get a
self-serving.
lot further with sugar than you do with shit.
100%, and it's much better to do it by like going, hey, how come you hold the belief that you do? Like to really if your goal is to shift somebody's mind, for example, as we're seeing with jazz and such, if you wanted to do that, like it's much more effective to go and ask the person, like, how come you have these like, qualms and hesitations, and then you try to address those. So if that's really your goal, and that's what you're stating, then that's how you do it, as opposed to what people are doing, which is just attacking, belittling, and doing all these things, which really do not serve anything and are just like a way of venting or a way of asserting power and superiority, and deeply narcissistic.
100%. I think as a CEO, what his job should have been was, this is a current topic in our country, and we encourage you to be pro-choice. But at all times, we encourage you to be pro-respect and respect conversations and people and people's opinions and thoughts. And I think that was not the message that was, delivered. So people do get annoyed with that.
Yeah, but often they don't feel like they can express that annoyance. So what happens, especially like this is a CEO of a company, so these employees, they really feel like they have no choice because they might lose their jobs. And I've certainly overheard enough people say, "Oh, I'm
100%.
Yeah, they fire people. They lots of people unfriend people. If the consequence is severe enough, it does silence people from and it's intimidating. It doesn't change their minds, but it pressures them.
Yeah, I think that's really, really well stated there. Esteban coming in again with $2 super chat. Please sing my previous super chat, dude. I sort of sang it, but I can't. But I thank you nevertheless. Josh Randell disavows coming with a generous $20 super chat. Thank you so much, Josh. He says it's troubling that liberty ceased to be a liberal value. I think we're seeing the East Coast establishment, DC, CIA, Langley, Wall Street, Harvard in panic mode. Their hegemony was challenged by the way they control social media. Careful there, Josh. Careful, buddy. Thank you so much. And Josh, I just see another comment you put in the chat there that I think is a very astute observation. Censorship radicalizes people. The powers that be know that. I'm not sure. I can't speak to that second sentence or not to what degree this is deliberate in that regard, but there is plenty of data to show that the former is absolutely true, that censorship does further radicalize people. I mean, you can't keep half the population just completely bottled up with their thoughts and feelings for extended periods of time without it suddenly, or not suddenly, over a period of time exploding, right?
It also causes so much distrust, right? And this is what we're seeing. And, I wrote on my Substack about this at some point, with what the White House was doing with sort of misinformation and disinformation about a certain topic. And, that is so scary because even though what White House was doing was just providing guidance to these social media platforms. I mean, it is the White House, right? It is also the IRS. And so, I mean, that was actually terrifying. And currently it's applied, I was shocked to see how many people cheered, particularly on the left, because they agreed with it, and didn't see the problem with doing something like that, where maybe they think it's got a noble undertone to it right now, but they can once they start that, they can do it with anything. And one thing I kind of asked people to consider was, so you might love the current administration, believe that they have your best interests in mind, cool, true or not, but what if it's the other administration that you don't feel that way about, right? Like instituting the exact same rules. People would be up in arms. And so it's like, just to allow them to sort of see the slippery slope of that. But I was amazed at how few people were actually realizing how deeply problematic that is to, democracy, to, the idea of censorship is just, I'd rather hear some terrible ideas and terrible things than, have that controlled. And that's exactly what happens in all these different countries where authoritarianism comes in, and they shut down speech, free speech. And, bad ideas should be debated, should be addressed, but they shouldn't be censored.
I mean, don't we all have a problem with, I guess, what we know of North Korea and what's currently happening? People are outraged by that, right? So, and the world, there's a general consensus there that what's going on in North Korea is horrendous. The Olympics that just passed, I think Kim Jong announced that he won 3 gold medals there. Like, it's actually crazy. And those people, that's the only media outlet that they have. It's government controlled, and that's what they're being fed, and that's all they know. How do we not see the correlation?
Yeah, and it's weird, right? It's this like intentional, chosen ignorance, and it shows you how these things can happen, right? The fact that people are reacting the way they do, even though they would condemn, say, North Korea regime, but don't recognize that the same thing is happening where they are, is really troubling. And I know, like, my family is immigrants from a country that had that kind of regime, so they very much noticed when these things started happening, and kind of immediately, and they recognized it. And I know people, in China are saying this is reminding them as well of some of the things that, the Cultural Revolution, like a lot of those things are very similar, kind of eerily so. And it's interesting to see how people comply in ways and stop thinking sort of critically and give up values that we all thought were like very important ones very quickly, very easily, and actually
it's so true. What they say when they say it's easier said than done. Like, you can, unless you're in the outlook is very different when you're in the situation. And I think that's how you distinguish between good and great people. And good people can learn from other people's mistakes or be told and be aware, but great people, and there's very few of them, can, good people need to go through the experience, but great people, which is a lot harder to find, can just learn through others' experiences. I think that's what's going on.
Yeah, it's interesting how little people learn through others' experiences. Like,
it doesn't
the way they went through it.
Yeah, it seems that, I mean, we're seeing more folks wake up, obviously, to a certain degree, but overall it's still rather disconcerting. It appears to me anyway that still the majority of our societies in the Western world, particularly in the United States, seem to be somewhat asleep at the wheel to what I see as an emerging radical infringement on our rights, liberties, and freedoms. And you kind of touched on that on your last point there, Katherine, when you started discussing a lot of the parallels that we're seeing between Chinese communist government structures and things that the erosion of our rights and freedoms here in America. I just don't know how much longer. It makes me wonder how much longer people are going to tolerate this trajectory, this erosion. In fact, it's very surreal to me sometimes that we're even putting up with it. It's very surreal to me. I
have no idea how long that is going to last. Some people think that it's going to be gone soon. Other people think it's, we're going to crash and burn before it goes away. And I think it might be here for a little while because we're not really seeing kind of a course change very much yet. And also because of all these institutions, specifically education, also corporations,
Mm-hmm.
like it's so embedded right now in all these structures that that becomes very difficult to change, and so that is very disconcerting. I mean, honestly, I don't want to be an alarmist, and I'm optimistic and hopeful, but at the same time, like, there are times where I go to a dark place and I think we're in really, really, really big trouble.
Yep.
Yeah. It's what's most baffling to me, and Katherine, we talked about this a great deal last time you're on. Now I'm starting to recall it a bit more clearly. My background is, I mean, put it this way, during the first Bush administration, W. I'm not that old, not the first Bush, his father, but W. I was out in the streets protesting these neoconservative wars that were being started and launched, and I was out there, and I considered myself conventionally a bit left of center on most things, and we encouraged. It just seems to. I just remember. In the early to mid 2000s, the same exact core values that were considered a bit left of center then are now considered somewhat right wing. It's very baffling to me.
Yeah, it's insane. Like, freedom of speech is something like conservatives are fighting for now.
Yeah, it's such a bizarre world. And then WikiLeaks, the left loved, and now WikiLeaks the left hates, and they hate Julian Assange for the most part. It's just, and then now we have current administrations whose foreign policy is much more akin to George Bush's than the previous one. Is anyone thinking critically? Anyone even making an attempt to think about where things are at in these regards in an objective manner? I mean, we're not talking about ancient history here. We're talking about within the last 15, 20 years. Your thoughts, Katherine?
Yeah, I mean, there are ways to kind of look at every situation and ask certain kinds of questions, but people are choosing not to do that, which, they're choosing to avoid critical thought. The political sort of spectrum has shifted so much. It's like, I feel like, especially the far left has become kind of like authoritarian in many ways.
Very
strange. And yeah, I also find, I always considered myself, a liberal and pretty left leaning. And I don't even know what I am now, and I actually don't even want to identify as anything because it's just I don't even know at this point, and I'd rather just be like, whatever, I'm me. But I don't know what to do with all of that, and I'm not sure what the question was anymore.
It's okay. Go ahead, Sadaf.
I was just gonna add that we have some trouble when some of the things that I'm reading is people hoping we were in famine rather than the situation that we're in now, because at least with famine, for example, that you just need to go and look for some food and then your problem is solved. Like, you just need to eat some food. Whereas what's happening right now, people don't know where to begin. How do you help yourself? How do you stop this? How do you find a solution? People don't know.
Yeah, and outside of COVID, which obviously has terrorized us all, we've got I don't know if I'm allowed to.
Just say the virus.
Right, the virus. Yeah, outside of that being a problem for us all, there's a lot of things that are going pretty well, and for some reason, when things are going pretty well, we want to people don't think that they are. They don't appreciate it at all. I made some tweets about how America may not be perfect, but it's it's pretty good. Ask any immigrant. That's the case. Like, if you talk to an average person, like especially somebody who's immigrated, they appreciate a lot about it and the opportunities, and people are just like not appreciating what they have, which I think is also a problem. But I think it comes from like some kind of, perhaps it's the lack of religion, and so they found sort of a religion in these ideas and these ideologies. I think it's also probably a lack of community. That's something that's really gone away, and that causes, I think, a lot of because there's a lot of mental health issues as well, and that in part might be because of our lack of community and the way that we live our lives right now. And I think if people don't have a particular goal in their, it gives them, they don't have that sense of direction or purpose, and people find that in either a religion, which again I think sort of was replaced for some people by these ideologies, and also some people find that meaning in family, in some of the work that they do, but not, a lot of people don't have that, so perhaps that's also a contributing factor.
Now, aren't both of you ladies immigrants, as I recall?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So why don't you each respectively give a little, speak to that a little bit, if you wouldn't mind. Katherine and then Sadaf.
Sure. Well, I immigrated from the USSR, so the Ukrainian part of it, but back then it was the USSR, so it was like Soviet and communist and all that stuff. So I happen to be Jewish, and so talk about systemic oppression. That was all there. You had in your passport and all that kind of stuff. The opportunities, you couldn't go into certain occupations. There's violence, lots and lots of discrimination, and just in general, I mean, people who didn't think like the government wanted them to think would absolutely disappear in that black car in the middle of the night, and people were kind of conditioned to tell on other people. So there's a lot of things that were going on that seem recognizable here, but I think and I was quite young when I moved, but I've certainly gotten quite a perspective from my family, and living in these, we did believe in sort of this American dream, and it's, the freedom is there. It's not a perfect, none of these countries, they're not perfect. Australia, North America, England, they're not perfect countries, but we definitely did see the fact that, hey, if you work hard and have some ability, you're gonna have an okay life. And so there's a deep appreciation for that. But then seeing, people who escape from these countries generally value the freedoms that come in say, living in America or Canada or wherever. And other people seem to take it for granted and not want to fight for it, not really appreciate it, and have these negative feelings towards these countries. And it's okay to criticize. I mean, I criticized, like I live in Canada right now, so I criticize the Canadian healthcare system. Yeah. It doesn't mean I actually don't believe, I actually very much believe in the healthcare system. Right. That's one of my most socialist views. But it doesn't, just because you think something is generally good doesn't mean you can't try and improve on it, but you still should appreciate that there is that good thing there. So I'm looking at it and I'm seeing kind of a movement towards authoritarianism and a lack of appreciation for the positive things that people have.
Yeah, really well stated there. Josh Rendell disavows. Thank you again, Josh, for the $10 super chat. Use a different Mexican beer brand besides try Modelo 19. Okay, I got it noted, and I think that's a pretty good suggestion. Thank you, Josh. And what about you, Sadaf? A little bit of background on your on your original origin and your immigration process?
Yeah, so we touched on this on the last show, but I mean, any Afghan that isn't grateful right now, given the current circumstances, it'd be honestly outrageous. But my family fled in 1989, and like I said, Mum was pregnant with me at the time. So the way we fled was at the airport. Our story was because they didn't want civilians to flee. It was that we're going to India to get operated on Mum's tumor in her stomach, and me being the tumor, and they obviously didn't check any of that, and we were let go and just told to get back here ASAP. And obviously, the rest is history. We got in once we arrived in India, seeking asylum there, and then I was born and whatnot. And 5 years after that, we came to Australia legally. So you can't help but look at. I mean, it's 30 years down the track now, and my parents obviously made the right decision fleeing that country, and you can't help be anything but grateful for, I guess, the opportunities and the life that we've been given, because everything that you see in the media right now about Afghanistan, that could easily have been us. That could have been me. That could have. It's crazy to even think about how any Afghan that was granted some sort of asylum or refuge or citizenship in any of these first world countries would be taking anything for granted. I think that's why, despite everything that's going on here right now, I have such a deep respect for every other opportunity this country has given me.
Right on. And I that's really well stated, both of you, honestly. And it gives you guys, it's very clear to me anyway, how those things have played into shaping, rather, your current worldview and perspective on things. I think it's very easy for people that already are originally from these respected territories where where you're at and where Sadaf and where Katherine's at, to just take a lot for granted, right? So I remember I became a bit more nationalistic when I started touring around the world when I used to make my money in the music industry. And usually you would think that would have the opposite effect, but it didn't, because then I saw all the little things, right, throughout all the different countries that I was traveling to that I just never thought about. I never thought about before, that I took for granted. And not that I'm not grateful for all my traveling experiences, and I love to travel. I love to go to different countries, but it was also very eye-opening for me to be how grateful that I should be for all the different little things and conveniences that I had never considered before that. Anyway, let's get to some. Let's go to a couple lighter questions before we deep dive into some more stuff. So, Katherine, what is your favorite Tom Waits song?
I think you know the answer to that question. Yesterday's Here is my favorite Tom Waits song. Okay,
very good. Good answer. And what were three of your favorite music artists in college?
Oh, wow. I don't know. I mean, I'm a huge Leonard Cohen fan.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, my music tastes haven't really changed very much because I like Joy Division.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a little bit all over the place. I mean, I even like, Billy Joel. So I really do have a bit of a strange taste. If you looked at my iPod, or not my iPod anymore, but whatever my musical device is.
The iPod. I was like, wow, you're still using an iPod.
No, I don't. But if you were to look through my playlist, it's like very random. Most of it I discover either through the power of Shazam. Do you know Shazam? This amazing app.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I love it because like if I hear a song I like, I can just find out who it is, and then I listen to it on repeat. And also some of it are like songs of people that I dated. And it's their playlist, and I would, even if the relationship didn't work out, at least I got some good music recommendations out of it.
There you go. I think you might be the world's first and only Billy Joel Joy Division fan.
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange combination.
You had to be a big shot, Catherine. Banks done. Welcome back to membership. It looks like your credit card expired and you re-signed back on. I definitely know how that goes. Let's see. Oh, can you tell me what it was like being the unit publicist for The Man in the High Castle?
Wow.
And are you a fan? Are you a fan of this series?
Yeah, I am a fan of this series. It was pretty awesome. I came in the second season. I have to say, one of my first days on the show was I was watching how background performers were being taught how to do the Nazi salute.
Oh my gosh.
Pretty surreal. And I started singing "It's Springtime for Hitler." And I don't know if people really around me really appreciated that or were fans of the producers, but but that show was like incredible in the way that every detail of that world was really thought through and brought to life. I remember looking through just newspapers and magazines and things like that, and it was all like kind of recreated to be in the time period. The articles, like the I guess the props department actually, or the art department, they actually wrote everything, right? Like the level of detail on that show. So if an actor picked something up and they looked at it, they wouldn't be taken out of the world because it was real. And they had they had a lot of Nazi things around, but they were very thoughtful. They were very careful about making sure that it wasn't exposed to the public, that people took down the swastikas, armbands when they were out in public and things like that. But I really like that the show was so thoughtful about, because some people might criticize that somebody like Hitler was portrayed as like a human being and not this like raging monster, which of course he is, but at the same time, I think there was a lot of thought that went into showing that this is, if you just portray Nazis as these super villains, everybody's going to go, well, of course, I would never follow this. I would know better. Of course, they're evil, they're villains. But that wasn't the case, right? Because these horrible things came around as like very persuasive, and Hitler was was thought of as very charismatic, and he held the attention of all these crowds. And it's okay to say that and still know that he was pure evil by his actions.
Right.
But it's important to recognize that, and it's important to recognize the humanity of this stuff, so that you know not to fall for it. Actually, right? Yeah.
Very interesting. I'm a big fan of the series for many of the reasons that you stated there. The attention to detail is just extraordinary, and I do think that they did a good job painting a fuller picture, right? Like you said, it's much easier just to go with this one-dimensional. Here's your cartoon evil people, and these are the good people. But what about that? What about his approach made him so convincing to so many people? And I think
we need to understand that in order to actually avoid that in the future, right? We need to be honest about things. Yeah,
totally. And I think the show also does a really good job of predicting an alternative future in America had things gone differently. I think it was pretty realistic in that regard. If you had to hypothesize what that would look like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, definitely. And I think because we see it through certain characters, I mean, it could be these characters. And there are certain things that people thought was, were good things. And some of them were good things. And again, that's something that's important to recognize. It doesn't devalue the sheer evilness of what happened. And I of course, in particular...
in particular, you, right? given your lineage.
Literally, Holocaust survivors in my family, right? But people have actually gotten kind of canceled for suggesting that, Hitler did something good for the people, which is kind of ridiculous. I mean, just because, if somebody gives you a tax break, right, and you say, that's cool, we got a tax break, and then they, go and kill a bunch of people, it doesn't mean that we think that this person is a good person when we say, oh, he did tax breaks. It just allows us to recognize, okay, so some people supported this guy because he gave tax breaks, right? So, again, I'm curious to know who was your favorite character on the show?
It's been so long since I watched it. It's pretty difficult for me to even know what the names are. It's been years since I've seen the show. I want to say my favorite guy was one of the Nazis.
I bet you it's the American one, right?
Yeah, the American one. Yeah, the American one.
Yeah, played by Rufus Sewell, so who's actually
That's the guy. Yeah, that's the guy. That's the guy. Yeah, he was my favorite character in it. I thought he was just absolutely phenomenal. He's
an amazing actor, really, amazing to watch.
Yeah. I think that show is so phenomenal and so well done. When I saw that on your resume, I was like, wow, I gotta ask about this. So tell me about Kerrisdale High.
Oh, wow. Okay, that was probably my first acting job. So I think I was so excited that it was just a tiny part, and I had such a fun time, and everyone was so nice to me, and I was getting paid so much for a teenager that I literally thought of giving the money back. I was going to be like, hey guys, please, you don't need to pay me. Little did I know, I really was very naive about the film industry back then.
Could you tell us could you tell the folks what Kerrisdale High was?
I mean, I think it was just a teenage show. It was so long ago. I don't even. I mean, I was a teenager. I think I was a teenager when I was on that show. Just an episode.
And how did you get that gig? Did you go to an audition, or what happened?
Okay, well, back in the day, I did used to have an agent, and I did some acting, and so I guess I auditioned for it.
And was it kind of a Nickelodeon-esque kind of vibe?
Yeah, but more like
a teen version.
More like a teen version, yeah, with a little bit more drama.
Oh, okay, so kind of
kind of thing.
Kind of like a teen high school drama.
Yes, yeah, that's what it would have been.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I was just curious. I thought that was funny. And so, when did you pivot from your heydays at Kerrisdale High into more direction of publicist and writer? When did it become clear to you that you wanted to pivot in that direction more than acting?
Well, I mean, you know what? I guess I don't talk about my acting background because I have a lot of embarrassment.
Yeah, I know.
It's commercials. I did study it for a bit. I studied in New York, which I'm so honestly, this was so life-changing. I had this amazing acting teacher named Robert Exmotica. He's passed away now, but I used to study at Carnegie Hall. Night from 6 p.m. till 3 o'clock in the morning. And it was a Meisner technique, which is very specific. And my teacher used to teach with him at the neighborhood playhouse. And so it was amazing, and there were all these plays in the rooms, and the ceiling was always like the paint was falling because it was so old. And I would just borrow plays, and I've never really lost my love for it, though I felt more embarrassed about it over the years. Actually, during the this current season of Not the Flu, I started taking Zoom classes, acting classes again. It was actually really nice. Yeah, because it was a way of like taking like the sad emotions of being trapped and putting them into something, you know. I'm very good at crying on cue, basically, is what I'm trying to say.
Oh man. I bet that's just a revelation to all your ex-boyfriends.
Oh, you know what? Okay, so I'm kind of an evil human being.
Go ahead.
So I was on a press trip with, I think it was Nashville, with a bunch of pretty nice writers, and particularly this one nice guy. So I was telling him about how I can do this, like I call it my Puss in Boots impression. So I don't know if you've seen like Shrek. So Puss in Boots is like, he does this like eyes, and it's like these tears, and he can get anything he wants.
Yeah.
So I told them about how I can do that. And then I started crying on cue. And then people came over and were like, "What's wrong, Katherine? Are you okay?" And I just was in tears, and all I did was I pointed at the guy. He did it.
Really?
Yeah, and he tried to like defend himself. I was like, "No, it's this thing that she does," and he just sounded insane. And that was pretty evil, actually.
Wow.
Probably didn't deserve it, but yeah. Usually I use my powers for good, not evil, but not that night.
Thanks for sharing, dishing up that dirt. That one for us.
You're probably rethinking your guest choices now.
No, I love it. Erectile Reptile, thank you for your $10 super chat. Drake's new album comes out tonight. I didn't know that. Doge to the moon, indeed. Fact. And I've also been notified through my DMs that even if you're not like a super big channel, even saying that former German name's leader can get me flagged. So I'm going to say,
Really?
yeah, that's what I was just told by a pretty big content creator that's bigger than me. One of Mr. H's hobbies was whistling "When You Wished Upon a Star." That's very nice. It sounds so. It sounds so.
I love dogs. You know, I'm a dog lover, but I still have nothing else in common with this Mr. H. No, see, this is so problematic. The fact, and I guess it's because the AI or whatever
the
software that they're using, the bots that they're using on the channels, they're I guess not good enough to differentiate. I mean, I actually had a strike against me on Facebook, and it was like the first time I've ever had anything like that.
Yep.
And I was sharing.
What for?
Well, I was sharing a video that was actually showcasing, like it was like a parody, not a parody, but it was a stunt that really showcased really anti-Semitism, and it was very clear that that's what it was doing. And so I shared this video, and it got pulled down, and I got a strike against my account, which I've never had. Meanwhile, I've noticed, like on Twitter, I've reported a few things that were like legitimately hate crimes or hate words, and Twitter actually went and said, yes, they are. Thanks for reporting. So they agreed with me and left it. And they left the account holder too. So I think they're it's interesting because they certainly do take down a lot of content. For some reason, they left. I mean, the person who made the one that I reported was like a former senator or something like that. And yeah, it's kind of interesting how this works. And then certain words that you just can't say.
Right.
I know certain people who got demonetized or gotten strikes for just talking about certain topics that we discussed earlier, and it's like. It's insane because they're not even saying anything. I mean, there's a big difference between misinformation and disinformation, right? Disinformation is like you're intentionally trying to mislead the pretty bad, and I'm not completely opposed to fighting that. But misinformation is like you saying something that you believe to be true, but maybe it's not. But also, who decides whether it's true or not, right? And certain things are completely factual and verifiable, but some things are not. And the attacks on speech have been on misinformation in addition to disinformation.
Yeah, well stated there. And hey, Samantha, good to see you in chat, and I appreciate your comment there. And I'm sorry to hear about that, but it's not a comment I can read aloud. But thank you for sharing that. And that sucks. So this is something that we've talked about in the past, you and I, Katherine, and this is kind of a really good example, right? What we're talking about is these AI bots are not programmed with any nuance or context, but furthermore, this isn't just a problem relegated within AI robots. It's a problem that's been we're having with a lot of real life humans who are communicate and make up their minds and admonish and demonize people freely without any context, without any sense on what the intention was, right? So if you are willing to omit all context and intention out of your making up your mind towards someone's character, at that point, you are arguing in such levels of bad faith and dishonesty that it really, I find this infuriating. And we're not only seeing this with certain segments of our society, but we're seeing this with the way limits to our speech are being enforced. Your thoughts?
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course, that's something that is troubling. I mean, I wonder if robots would do better. I mean, they're being programmed by humans, but, if they're programmed in a very, logical, systematic way. And actually, that's something that might be happening in certain things, like in legal settings, for example. In a legal setting, they are thinking of potentially, at least for smaller kind of cases, using AI technology for at least preparing the briefs and giving, so that would be kind of interesting to see how AI determines outcomes as opposed to humans, which are more susceptible to bias, though, so can be AI, because humans, ultimately program them with particular biases. But I mean, to omit information is absolutely, is very much a bad faith situation. And I find it, again, it comes down to curiosity, because I find it kind of, if your end goal is just to win by any means, and you're gonna, go dismantle arguments and bad faith, and you're gonna omit information, and you're not allowing the other point of view to present as best a case as they can. I think it's so valuable to have them do that, even if they don't win, because it gives you much more certainty in your own view, right? I think it even helps you. So I don't quite understand. I think there's a level that maybe I just don't understand humans sometimes.
Yeah. I think that's well stated. Again, thank you, Josh Rendell. You're single-handedly covering my cell phone bill and my internet bill, I think, this month. Thank you. Such a great stream. Such a great community. Love you guys. Love you back, man. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate it. And it particularly strikes me as particularly petty and vindictive, and dare I say evil to a certain extent, when you see certain swaths of people pile on individual for something they said, and deliberately knowing that they're, number one, taken out of context, and number two, after the person clearly says something to the effect of, I didn't mean it that way, I didn't mean any harm, I didn't know that, I didn't mean to offend your particular level of sensibilities, that's not what I meant by this, right? And then they keep going at them, right? Even after their intention was made clear. And to me, it takes a special kind of, you have to be a special kind of supreme dickhead to be the kind of person that would keep twisting the knife on somebody that has clearly made that, clearly let you know that their intention was to mean no harm. Your thoughts?
Oh, absolutely, you do. I mean, it's a form of bullying, I think. It's
Absolutely.
Kind of like,
Absolutely.
You're just like, you know, it's not popular anymore to like physically assault someone.
Right.
We might go to prison, and plus, you know, we're indoors a lot, so it's become sort of very acceptable to do it in this verbal way and attack other people that you don't know, and it's like a dehumanization, right? They don't see that person as a human being. Again, I don't think people would do most of this stuff in person. I think they do it because even if they're using their own names, they're just, it's still distanced enough. That's why I try not to take anything that people say, you know, online personally, because they don't know me and I don't know them. It's a lot more hurtful when it comes from people that might actually know you. Yeah,
I actually had an experience about a month or so ago with a particular individual who's, I mean, he just must not be well. That's all I can say. But he was just relentlessly coming at me every day for extended periods of time and just saying erroneous, just straight up slander and libel, like on the daily basis. And I let it go. I let it go for a while, for a couple months, and then finally I just snapped one day and I got into it. I went back and forth with him for about a week before I left it alone. But it's one of these things.
I think he was doing that on your end. Like,
what's that?
What do you think? Why do you think he was doing that?
I think what I've noticed, particularly in the crypto Twitter, is that there is, if a particular subsect of crypto gets big enough community-wise, you will inevitably have a small faction of people that are responsible for almost all the drama and turmoil within that respective community. And these people find each other and they make mountains out of molehills. They are very hyperbolic about the points that they're trying to make. And
they're affirming their own importance in the world, like by attacking you.
Oh yeah, it's the easiest, laziest way to make a name for yourself, by attacking people that are actually productive and doing things, and they usually come after productive content creators, for example, or successful NFT artists or things like this, right? And so, they're doing the least, right? Well, they're not creating anything.
Right, like why would you go after someone, right? Like there's really no benefit to a person to do that if they're not, you know, if they have something going on in their life, you know?
Well, what's interesting is through some efforts, and this particular guy, one of the particular guys I'm telling you about, is if it's not me, it's somebody. He's just bullying someone every day, all the time, and he got bored of me because I just blocked him and his crew, and I just stopped engaging. But what's interesting to me is I actually, through some detective work, we actually found out he was obviously operating behind an alias, as they most of the time do, and with no picture or anything to go on. He was doxing me and doxing my business, encouraging his followers to leave fake bad reviews on my business, things of this nature. At that point, I had found out where he worked. I found out what he looked like. I found out where he lived. And I posted something because I knew he was stalking everything I was posting. So I had posted something wherein he would just know that I knew, right? And I just left it at that. And then suddenly, all his smack talking about me, it ceased. It ceased. So it's just kind of like, yeah, it's not too fun, is it? It's not too fun. So
no, I guess there have to be consequences, right? It's like it's like with bullies, you know, they need to have some consequence to them when they say things, or when people call people names or accuse them of things or invent things. Like there needs to be some consequence, or they don't, they don't stop, and they're getting too much out of doing their terrible actions, right?
Yeah, and even at that, I was sure to be ethical about it because I wasn't about to do what he did to me. So I didn't, nobody knew what that meant except him and I, right? So I was careful to put a signal out that nobody else would know what it meant, because even though he did all those things to me, I didn't want to publicly dox him, even though he did the same to me, So
I agree with that. I mean, you don't want to stoop to the same
right, but
level.
It was a learning experience for me as well, because with the increased popularity of my profile, some other content creators kind of reached out to me and said, "Hey, look, this is because your profile's been raised, and this is kind of can be an inevitable part of the process, and you're a bit of a bolder personality, so." The best thing to do is the moment you sense this sort of vibe from people, just block and move on. Do not engage. And I'm like, yeah, that is for the best. It's for the best. So
that's what that's the advice I've been given as well.
That is for the best.
I never used to block or mute. I've started muting. I mean, there were a few conversations where I kept getting tagged, and I was just like, this is driving me. And it's amazing. Once you mute it and you don't check it out, you feel this peace of mind, like it's like it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. And someone asked, Sadaf had to step away to take care of something, but I think she's back. Are you back, Sadaf?
I am. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Welcome back. We had a kangaroo incident, clearly.
Oh,
or koala.
I did. It was I had to get rid of it.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, that was a pretty stealth French exit there, Sadaf. Well, welcome
Great
back.
Boxer. Yeah.
It's fun. I actually had to jump on for to take a call for Mum's cancer doctor. Like, she was coming up for her remission this year, and we were there last year, and we were told, that you're going to come off the medication and the hormones in 2021. You just got to, write it out. And 3 months ago, she got diagnosed with it again just before her 10-year remission period. So it was her, and she was just so devastated. I think she was more devastated than my mum. She was like, "Oh, I didn't expect this," but it was a nice conversation. And the poor woman, I asked her how she was, and she was just so thankful of the fact that she said, "I've spoken to at least 15 of my patients, and not a single person has asked how I am." And it just brings you back to, I guess, the root cause here, right? We're really forgetting the basics.
Yes.
Yeah. Agreed. And yeah, sorry to hear that. And sorry. You're going through all this right now.
She's an absolute fighter. She's on a new treatment now, so we're praying that it's all good. We've caught it early, which is great, because we had the assessment last year. So whatever it is, it's only been less than 10 months of it surfacing. So hopefully this is her third time with cancer in 23 years. So she's really fighting it. Yeah.
Wow. Let's see here. Yo, Johnny Sins just bought into NFTs, bullish. I mean, it can't hurt. It can't hurt. Someone else asked earlier. I think I know the answer for Katherine. I don't think Katherine's an owner of any NFT digital art. Are you, Sadaf?
I am, but they've been donated to me.
Okay, that's cool.
by people who are upcoming artists. So it's very nice. I've got some ideas, but yeah, no, I think the space is actually, it's amazing. Like, you know, people don't understand what the whole purpose of NFTs are and why we're giving it so much value. But if you actually think about it, how much easier is it to open up your phone and show someone your virtual album of all these artworks rather than dragging all that artwork with you physically and showing people, right?
Well,
I have a question for you.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Okay. So I'm an NFT dissenter in some ways, but on the one hand, I think it's great, kind of like a patronage system, and I have a friend who's been making some NFTs that are awesome. I wonder though, I guess because when you're getting an NFT, you're buying just that JPEG, you know, I mean, not a JPEG, but like you're basically buying that image, but it's not the same as like when you're, you know, buying a piece of art and you just got the one. You're just buying like a copy of the file. And so I think I do have a hard time like getting my brain on this. And I can see some potential in, like, depending on how we live in our spaces. Like, for example, if you had a virtual gallery and that's where you were, or a virtual living room even, and you would invite your friends, or maybe even like I thought, oh, you could do like a ticketed virtual gallery of all these like cool, and you use a VR headset or something to walk around and view these art, and you can only find that art there. I can actually really see the value in something like that. It's a bit different, but it is an experience, and you have these rights. But if you're just buying, like, the insane amounts of money that some people have spent on some of these NFTs, and they see them as an investment, I don't think I understand that. So if you want to, you know, enlighten me, bring me to the other side.
Sure.
I'll keep my mind open there.
Sure. This is something I've been talking about quite a bit recently. Many of my viewers almost demand it, and for good reason. It's a very fascinating and emerging facet out of all this extension of the crypto scene. Well, firstly, I would just say I won't try to sell you on NFTs. My view is, as somebody who's collected vintage impressionist art for many, many years, I can just tell you why I like them. To me, it's just it's a different experience. It's not a supplementation for my physical art. It provides a different kind of relationship with the artwork. And if you're going to take the position that you don't like NFTs, period, then basically what you're saying is that you don't view digital artwork as legitimate artwork. And the only what NFTs provide, through giving each NFT a unique blockchain identification, it's the only technological metric that we have for people to be able to stake and claim ownership over a piece of digital art. So it's kind of like a necessity if we even want to enter the foray of people being able to purchase and sell digital pieces of artwork, right?
I guess, like, if I look at digital art, like, I don't think it has less creative value than, say, somebody painting, you know, with a brush and paint, because really the value is in the creativity of the individual who's created it. But you are getting potentially, I guess but it's kind of like, I guess it's kind of like when people pay a ton of money for prints because there's maybe 20 prints. I guess it's kind of similar to that in a way, because you're not getting the original there either.
Yeah, I mean, again, I look, what I tell people that have raised, you know, serious skepticism or hesitance towards engaging in the NFT marketplace at all, I'll firstly say this isn't for everyone. Some people are going to just only be comfortable with having a relationship with artwork that's physical and that's what they prefer, and they consider NFTs to be a waste of money and nothing more than a glorified, overpriced JPEG. I understand that mentality, and I don't think that's wrong. I don't think that's wrong to have that perspective, but I don't think it's wrong to have the other perspective conversely either. At this point, we're just talking about personal preferences that people, in my opinion, that people have towards what they consider their relationships to be with artwork. And I'll say another thing too, in part, what is motivating the NFT scene is, yeah, absolutely, it's people's financial interests. And to me, I find it rather fun and inspiring to see. Another thing too that's important to keep in mind, Katherine, is a lot of the transactions taking place in the NFT marketplace are other artists buying other artists' pieces. So we're seeing it becomes a very accessible way for artists to support other artists, and it's kind of like scratching each other's backs so that they can make a living off artwork, right? And so I've noticed a lot of...
That's not a bad thing. That's really... I mean, I think if anything, like I can say, regardless of where I stand on NFTs, at least that is something where, you know, artists are benefiting at the end of the day. And that's, you know, I like that aspect of it. But to me, that's why I kind of see it almost more like a patronage, because I might want to buy an NFT, but not because I necessarily want to invest and make money so I can sell it or see it as an asset, but more because I'm like, this is a brilliant artist, and this is my way of investing in their work so that they can create more work and, you know, have a life.
Yeah, and I know Scott's a big NFT fan. He says NFTs cut the corporate interests out of an individual's creative process. Yeah, I definitely think there's some truth to that. And also there's kind of an element right now in hybridization where it's not simply like a digital gallery kind of thing. There's also an element of, I would say, comic book collector kind of vibe, album collection vibe, trading card collection vibe. That's all kind of melding together to create this bizarre but fascinating conglomeration of all three of these things to set a precedence for a market that is sometimes results in very astronomical prices. I do think that we are in, I've told this with my viewers a few times now, I do think that we are in a bubble within the NFT market, and that's why I caution people to be a bit careful. But I don't think when that bubble pops that we're going to fall off a ledge. I do think that NFTs are here to stay. I think they are going to be a commonplace extension of the of the art dealership marketplace. Another thing that I like about it too is that it empowers regular people to almost be art dealers themselves, which we've never seen before, and to some varying degrees of success. I have a few viewers in this community, for example, regulars, that have made some pretty game-changing amounts of money through flipping of a few NFTs, and I always love to see that. I always love to see that. But of course, as I always caution, nothing's guaranteed in this market. Every time that you are investing in cryptocurrency or in NFTs, there's no guarantees that money could be lost, guys. But at the same time, I've seen a fair amount of success stories. So I don't know. I think it's a lot of fun. I've started purchasing. I recently purchased my first NFT works, and I don't know. I'm just enjoying it, and it's just kind of to me, it's just an extension, a different relationship with art than I have with the paintings that I own or buy and sell.
Okay, Stephen, you've convinced me. I'm going to create my own NFT.
Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to do that. And also, I mean, do you think that this increased interest in things like NFTs, do you think that does signal to a certain movement towards living in a more digital space? Do you think we are, as human beings, moving away from just like physical spaces and are going to have like a definite like hybrid where we value our digital space in the same way that we value our physical space.
Yeah, 100%. I think this is just, we're still in the infancy stages of that happening. I think my opinion is that the future is going to be a hybridization of people living in the physical world and the virtual world. I mean, we're already doing it obviously to a degree. I mean, to a large degree right now, but I'm saying the virtual experience is going to be that much more engaging and lifelike. I think pretty much most people are going to have pretty advanced VR technology, VR sets that aren't as clunky, that will be as small and lightweight as a pair of Ray-Bans. Within our lifetime, and I think we're going to see a hybridization of people's existence and the things and their activities toggle back and forth freely between the two in that regard. And I think the artworks are great. It's going to be art music is going to be a pretty significant part of it. Furthermore, just like to add, I also think that what we're seeing with this huge bubble in the NFT movement and all the money that's transferring around right now, this is also a consequence of people living in systems and societies that are essentially rigged against them. I mean, here we have been dealing with this, this pandemic for going on 2 years here. And people have been forced out of work for long extended periods of time. They've had their social circles diminished, or some people, all the others, stripped away from them. Their social lives stripped away from them. Of course, people are going to rely on social communities and more innovative possibilities and opportunities to make money, to supplement and keep afloat or get ahead, in spite of everything being thrown against us. I mean, here in the United States, for example, and I don't get me wrong, I love it here, but just you take the average working class income, and then you figure all the adversity that we've been put up against with this virus over the last 2 years, and then you figure their monthly car insurance, your monthly healthcare, your monthly healthcare plan insurance, all the gas for your vehicle, the food for yourself and or your children, and your rent or your mortgage, and that's just the tip of the surface, not including all your other bills and expenses and everything else. And you put that on top of all the restrictions that have been preventing people from making money if they want to. People are lashing out. People have had enough of this shit, and I think that they're looking to, I think we're seeing that expressed with both cryptocurrency and NFTs, communities of people coming together and saying like, you know what? Okay, this trading card, how much is it worth? Let's say it's worth an astronomical amount, so I can buy it for this price and make a ton of money, and then you can flip it, make a ton of money, and then now I just made a year's salary in 2 days, you know?
I guess it's not so different from the like day traders, how they manipulate the stocks. Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, I think it's even more organic than that, because it's, especially in the NFT market, we're not even talking about this. I mean, we're not even talking about hedge funds or anything like that. This is literally people coming together online. I mean, I've literally seen people online that are just like artists that I've known since I've been involved in the crypto space, launch their own NFT line and of like 30 pieces, and then it goes up in value like 50 times itself, 50x's within a week, right? Because the people, that person's built up a community of people that appreciate their work and love what they're doing and want to support that person, want to support the process and make money for themselves in the meantime. So this is all very grassroots in a way. And I think, I don't know, in that regard, I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. It's like definitely changing a lot of how we think about these systems and how we operate them, and kind of taking sort of power back and putting it in the hands of people as opposed to like giant corporations or financial institutions. Yeah, I also I think something that weirdly enough I find people don't talk about too much is AR, like augmented reality, because there's a lot of conversations around VR and the headset. I don't know, this is my gut more than anything, but I think that once we can figure out how to make it more seamless, in the sense of like maybe you have a contact lens or something and you see an overlay in the world, like imagine how that's going to affect everything around you. Like you're going to have, I don't know, concerts in the middle of a park with maybe your dream band performing, or NFTs, being displayed. Maybe you visit somebody's apartment and you actually do see these digital overlays, right? I mean, it's quite interesting. I mean, I had this experience a very long time ago, and it's very basic at the time, but it was, I think, canon. But they did a thing where you can be in a car, and we'd get customized completely based on AR, and you can change the color, you can change the type of seats. Like, it's interesting how it could potentially customize your entire environment without you ever actually having to have that physical object, at least in that visual form.
Yeah. I think that's well stated. I think your understanding of it is you are rapidly adapting to a greater understanding of it.
You basically said, I don't get it, but I'm getting there. Which is totally right.
Scott is deeply into NFTs, and I think that's another great comment that he put in there. It says the NFT market is essentially no different from the stock market. The biggest difference is Wall Street has rigged the stock market, and NFTs are way more fair. At this time, I would entirely agree with that. I think that's a fair statement.
Yeah, much closer to a stock than it is to just a piece of artwork. Is basically what I'm getting.
Yeah, I look at it as a hybridization of both. Yeah. Do you have anything to add on this one, Sadaf?
No, I think you've hit the nail on the head. But like everything else that we've discussed today, I think the appreciation of NFTs just being like a digital extension of our biological selves and the things that we like, that is definitely what's going to happen. And like any investment, I mean, the price of the house that I'm in right now, which I bought for close to $1 million, was only $56,000 28 years ago. So it's like any other investment. People will give it value, and it will. I think it's very in line with everything else that we're doing with social media. Just online and digital stuff in general. This will follow suit. Right now, the prices are pretty, I think, inflated, and you'll see the cycle. This comes and goes. But I think what people forget as well is some of the people that are paying, 25 or 100 Ethereum for something. You have to remember that crypto isn't. People that have amounts as significant as that, most of them got in very early. So just like right now, people are able to hold 1 million Dogecoins. One day it could be the same example where everyone who was able to put like $1,000 and they were able to get 100,000 of a particular token. Eventually, when the price of that token does go up, they're also able to make these purchases. So it's not like these people bought 1,000 Ethereum it's 5,000 Australian right now at that price, then everyone would be extremely wealthy, right? People got in very early, and I think that's what people forget.
Yeah, I think that's really well stated. I really don't even have anything to add on that, Sadaf.
I do find that quite interesting because it makes me think about how, currency, like money in general, is a value that is based on some kind of belief. The belief that maybe, the backing of a particular country that issues that money is of a particular value. So I guess you can put that belief on anything, right? And so why not NFTs? And okay, I'm starting to get it.
Oh yeah,
I'm starting to see the light.
No, yeah, that's
to put it into perspective, Catherine. When I purchased Ethereum, which is generally what people are using to buy NFTs, I bought it at it was about $150 per Ethereum. So even if I was to make a purchase with 50 Ethereum right now, I got in very early. Doesn't mean I'm spending 50 times 5,000. It means whatever 50 Ethereum was back when I purchased it. So really, I'm not spending too much.
You're not seeing it that way because you didn't cash out, and so you got in at a. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm walking through this in my head. I understand.
Yeah.
And it's really fun, and that's kind of what's fun specifically about the Dogecoin community, because it was a cryptocurrency that was created as a joke, kind of lampooning Bitcoin, but at the same time, it was created with actual real utility. So it was created out of jest and parody, but at the same time with actual solid coding and utility. And it just kind of turned into this funny accident, and that's what's great about having a strong community, just saying, oh yeah, we're all going to deem that dog money has value. And so they brought it from, the communities brought it from being worth a fraction of a penny to about 30 cents we're sitting at right now, to a top 10 crypto. It's on the top 10 crypto, and it's worth tens of billions of dollars now as a market cap, and that's all because
you don't see that happening with cats,
What's that?
I said you don't see that happening with cats,
No. So we got to get you. I got to set you up with a Dogecoin wallet so we can tip you with some Dogecoin. How about that, Catherine?
That sounds great. Actually, I would actually appreciate the help getting set up, because I've struggled.
Yeah,
with this part.
We'll work it out in the DMs. We're gonna get you a Dogecoin wallet. We're gonna get you in a blockchain ID that people can tip you in Dogecoin. How about that?
Love it. That's cool.
And then I'm
a big dog lover, so
it's the perfect currency for you. Then you're gonna be the proud owner of some dog money that's gonna appreciate in value.
I will be very proud of that too, because I'd tell everyone I own dog money. I mean, how cool is that?
Awesome. Well,
take that, cat people.
Yeah, take that, cat people. F you, cats. No, that's awesome. Okay, we're going to make that a reality. We're going to make that a reality. And what I'm going to tell you to do is I'm going to tell you to leave your dog money ID up in your bio for 1 week, that I can send people over to tip you in Doge. Okay. Okay.
Right.
So let's see.
You can buy Sam NFTs.
You can buy Sam Kennison NFTs. What did you say?
I said then I can buy some NFTs.
Oh, okay. So do you yourself consider yourself to be politically homeless, Catherine?
Yes, absolutely do.
Yeah, same here. Yeah.
I did an informal poll on my Twitter, and what the political orientations are of the people who follow me, and I was I think it was 14% right wing, 15% left, 12% center, and then 40-something% all politically homeless. So I feel there's a lot of people in that boat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the politically homeless faction is exponentially increased over the last 2 years. Wouldn't you say that? Would you say that's correct?
I would absolutely concur with you on that. Yes.
Yeah, I almost think it's gotten to the point where the typical left-right paradigm has become so increasingly antiquated and screwed up that I really do think that we are, the political landscape in the United States anyway, has never been more primed and ready for to elect independents, and perhaps even.
Apparently, there's a lot of registered, like from what I understand, there's a lot of registered voters in the U.S. who are like specifically, where like a lot of people vote independent, and that there's some big statistic on that.
Yeah. I know in the past it's always been like, oh, if you run as an independent, your probability of winning is almost zero, but I don't think that's the case anymore. I don't think it's the case anymore. I think
it's like you have these two parties. I mean, like you literally, in reality, in terms of who can win, it's like always these two parties. And like, why not have way more? I'd love to see so many more people, right? But I think part of it is also like how much money is involved, especially in the U.S.
Oh, yeah.
You've got like no limits, right? I think in terms of how much can be spent on a campaign. So that makes it very difficult for someone who's not, as wallet. It doesn't have quite as many Dogecoins to. Just kidding. Maybe Doge community can put out a candidate and support them.
Well,
but I think it would be great.
There actually is there actually are some select candidates that do accept Dogecoin now. I know there's a girl that's running in a woman rather, sorry, that's running in a northern suburb of Chicago for state senator right now, and she accepts Dogecoin donations on her website, so it is becoming a reality, But we also have a direct line to the people, wherein convincing anyway, independent candidates have never been more empowered to bypass the mainstream media, bypass the major parties, and do grassroots fundraising straight to and from the people, all exclusively online, and I think including cryptocurrency, actually including a pro-cryptocurrency platform, along with accepting digital currency as a form of donation, I think will give people a big advantage going to the next round of elections, because currently our elected leaders right now, whenever they speak about cryptocurrency, it's always, for the most part, it's both disparagingly and out of touch. It kind of reminds me of the PMRC in the 1980s, listening to freaked out parents talk about the dangers of heavy metal and brainwashing their children. That's what it sounds like to me. It's just, so we need to find elected leaders that or at least know what cryptocurrency is and what it does, because there's a huge disparity there right now.
I had this whole idea that I thought was brilliant, and maybe it's just delusional, but you can tell me. But basically, I was like, okay, we feel like we need to restructure the way that a political system works in the first place, and make it like even more diverse in terms of who can represent different things. So my thinking was a bunch of different people or parties can run to handle education, and another bunch of people run for economics, and including cryptocurrency and all that kind of stuff, and for every kind of category, and then they get elected, and then they are in charge of that particular area, but they would also then have to try and work together to have some cohesion, but basically as a voter, you wouldn't be, because a lot of us might be more on social issues that might align this way. On economics, might be more, let's say, conservative, immigration, and this. And this way, it allows you to much more pick and choose, as opposed to going with one party or the other party on all categories. So that was my what I thought was a brilliant idea, which is probably a delusional one. But what do you think?
No, I don't think that's entirely delusional. No,
not entirely.
I mean, it'd be a very difficult thing at first to set up and navigate. So are you essentially talking about a voting process wherein the people's issues are voted on in different categories instead of just like party platforms? Is that kind of what you're alluding to, or am I getting that wrong?
Well, yeah, like basically there would be like different, you could have 5 different parties running for very specific things, and maybe like more than one party can handle more than one category, but like education, there'll be a separate sort of, when you vote, you would vote for a party that you want to handle the education side of things. And I think it might be very difficult for them to work like cohesively, but there could be like a way of setting that up where they could, under maybe like a broader governance or something. But that way you're not like, again, I feel like it's more representative of people's views on different issues, as opposed to like, okay, you have to, if you believe in this, you have to pick and choose. That I'm like, okay, if I really believe in these social freedoms, I have to vote X party, right? Even though I disagree with them on Y and Z. Sure.
No, I think that's, I think what you're talking about seems like a reasonable proposal to look into. Yeah, absolutely. TJ Braymiller, $5 super chat. Cats are a-holes anyway. They are very finicky. They're like, cats are like, pet me. Wait, don't pet me. Let me know when you get that wallet set up and I'll tip you. See, there you go, Catherine. See?
Well, see, this is, dog lovers are the best, and they know that cats
100%.
I've been traumatized by a cat, I'll be honest. That there is a reason for my cat illusions, but I've always been a dog. No, I had one that like threatened my life on a daily basis while I took care of it.
How?
Had me locked in a broom closet. Yes, she would like. She would hurt me, like draw blood every day when I went to feed her. And I took really good care of her. I was like trying to be so nice to her. And it got to a point where like I was locked. I probably shouldn't admit this. This is probably too embarrassing. But she had me locked in a broom closet and I was so scared of her.
I've read somewhere that cats actually wait for their owners to die so that they could pull out its eyes.
Oh my God.
I'll send you it's an actual thing. It's an actual thing. They love feeding off human eyeballs. I don't know why. I know there are so many cat fans out there, but
yeah, I will say I will make one exception for certain cats. There are certain cats that behave like dogs, so they realize that they were born in the wrong body, but they identify as dogs, and I will accept them.
Yeah. Your cats do not love you. Cats do not love humans. The only reason why they're tolerating you is because you're giving them food and shelter, and they're way smaller than you. If those cats had the size, if they were big enough to take you down, they would take you down in a heartbeat. That's just my opinion.
I don't doubt that at all.
Josh Randell disavows, $10 super chat. Thank you, Josh. Steven Steele had to go into lurk mode. This bartender, Nicole, rudely interrupted me with a phone call. Damn it, Nicole. Did I miss anything? Oh, yeah, of course you missed things. You missed a part of the show while you were on the phone call with Nicole. We were mostly talking about NFTs. We went on an NFT tangent, and I think that's...
Gave away 1 million Dogecoins.
Yeah, we gave away 1 million Doge, Josh. But welcome back to the fold, and thank you for the super chat. Katherine, I'm going to, let's see, what do I got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to shoot 5 kind of pseudo rapid fire questions at you. And okay, so, and we'll just see how it shakes out here.
Sure.
Favorite breakfast food?
Oh, yogurt with Japanese cereal.
With go a little bit more into Japanese cereal.
Well, it's actually from Japan, and it's got like these dried pieces of fruit and granola. It's so good. It's very, very overpriced here because you have to import it, but in Japan it's actually very affordable. I don't know, probably not the most interesting thing. But
Why do you prefer Japanese granola dried fruit cereal to what you get here?
it's just so good and doesn't have sugar and it's
Oh,
like
okay.
real whole grains, like, but it's delicious. It does have sweetness because it has like dehydrated fruit in it. Yeah, I don't buy like normal cereal, but I really like it, and I'm very fancy about my food though. Like it has to be like free range eggs and fatty. The yogurt has to be fatty because it tastes so much better that way. And I'm like a total hipster without actually being a hipster.
It kind
I
of.
even drink kombucha. I've said it. I drink kombucha.
I don't drink it anymore, but I used to drink quite a bit of it. Okay. Favorite 90s film?
You know what? Right away, Pretty Woman popped into my mind just because it's so 90s. I don't know if it's my favorite 90s film, but it's like that was a really fun film.
Yeah, I like Pretty Woman. I think it's just a great example for young women to show that prostitution can be a very successful and alluring occupation to not only meet the love of your life, but ensure financial stability.
No, exactly. And it's good to be like a master of your own destiny and an entrepreneur. I mean, that's what she is. and if she took Dogecoin, you know, back then it wasn't available, but imagine the opportunities there.
Yep.
It's a really, really good point to consider.
She could have had a prostitution franchise.
You see, back then it was that movie just seems so innocent to me.
Yeah.
But it was supposed to not even have a happy ending. It just like the actors insisted that it had a happy ending, but it was actually going to end kind of in a negative way. It's a modern retelling of a classic Bernard Shaw play, Pygmalion.
Okay. So
yeah, but
it was supposed to have kind of a cryptic ending, but who insists?
I think the ending was supposed to be negative. Like he dumps her.
Oh. And
I think that's very similar. Sorry, there's a Netflix movie that 365 Days. I haven't watched it, but I have heard that. I mean, there's a lot of people talking about it, and it turns out to be not exactly the greatest thing when it comes to feminism and women's rights and all of that stuff.
No, it's definitely not. But I was just thinking. I guess that movie was just like the soundtrack is so 90s that it immediately makes you. It just brings you into the 90s. There's something just extremely 90s about everything in the way that the movie is shot. But now I'm like looking up all these other 90s movies, and and there were a lot of them. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas was in the 90s. Oh my God, it has 50% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's like a rotten.
Wow. Rotten
Crazy.
status.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that movie is such a classic. All right.
Falafel or shawarma?
Awful because I can't eat shawarma because I'm a hipster and don't eat meat.
Oh, you're a veterinarian?
I'm a veterinarian. You know what? I'm a pescatarian, but sometimes I used to say accidentally Presbyterian, but I'm not that.
So,
I consider myself a pescatarian.
I think a lot of people these days are moving into the Presbyterian.
Bit of fish, yeah.
not me.
Pescatarian.
Right, so do you eat fish?
Very hard for me to. I eat fish. Yeah, that's so.
Yeah,
Pescatarian will eat fish.
What about you, Sadaf? Do you eat fish?
Yeah, I love fish. I love seafood, but I don't like red meat, and I'm not really a big fan of chicken. So that's why I think I'm a pescatarian.
I'm not. Yeah. I don't like chicken at all, but I do love red meat. And I love shawarma. I love shawarma and falafel. I love Middle Eastern food. What's that? You love food?
Sounds like you love food in general.
I will concur.
I love I love dousing my Middle Eastern food in tahini sauce. That stuff is so good, man. Rolling Stones or the Beatles?
The Beatles.
Do you have a preference? Do you have a preference to that?
I've not heard either one of them.
You haven't heard the Rolling Stones or the Beatles, Sadaf?
Like, I probably have, but I'm unaware that it's them. I just no interest in that.
No.
That's so funny. That's so funny.
My dad taught me to love the Beatles, so, you know.
You guys are just talking about Pretty Woman, and I'm like, oh, that's awkward. Never watched that.
I don't know if that's true or not, or you're just denying it so that to save your dignity, unlike mine, which is gone.
I actually have it. All I know is that Julia Roberts is in it.
That's funny. I like both the Rolling Stones and the Beatles, but I like the Rolling Stones a bit more. They're a bit I don't know, they're a bit groovier, a bit looser, a bit more wild, I think. But
well, they're a little bit newer, right? Like, I'm sure the Beatles came out when? I mean, I think Rolling Stones followed the Beatles, right?
Barely. I mean, they both started in the 60s, but I do think the Beatles got a couple years in existence on them. But okay, favorite John Hughes film?
Oh my gosh. Talk about the 90s. I need to Google John Hughes.
All right, we'll let you Google.
Well, I don't remember like all the exact names. I know I've seen them. Okay, so he's got a lot of unproduced. Oh, he did Home Alone. Didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I didn't realize he actually did that. Okay, because I knew of the 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club. I would probably say Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
It's a good choice. Yeah. It's a good choice. Let's see.
Home Alone also. I mean, Home Alone is like an amazing movie.
Yeah, it's great. I'm trying to think of my favorite John Hughes movie. I think he was one of my favorites, actually, that is often overlooked. I think he produced and directed it. I think it's called She's Having a Baby with 1988 with Elizabeth McGovern and Kevin Bacon.
Kevin Bacon. 7 Degrees. He did. He directed, produced, and wrote it. Apparently.
Yeah, that's right. Alec Baldwin's in it too. But it's a really cool story about a newlywed couple that first gets married, and the guy, he moves out to the suburbs with his new wife, who's newly pregnant, and he keeps having all these kind of surreal levels of restlessness about moving out of the city, being married, into the suburbs, and going through all this kind of alienation and then temptation when he's back in the city. And it's just kind of his evolution to growing into that new phase and love of his life. It sounds super schmaltzy now that I try to explain it, but it's actually very clever and really well done. And it's also got Kate Bush songs in it, which is cool. But yeah. So but it's really well. Miles G Investments come with a $5 super chat. I'm going to make an Upshot NFT collection. Will you buy one? I will buy one for $5. The $5 you just gave me, Miles. But thanks for joining us, Miles, and good to see you in the mix. And keep me posted on that NFT collection. Let's see. What else do we have here? Okay. We're getting ready to kind of wind it down here. We're going almost 3 hours, but you're a native Canadian, aren't you?
What do you mean by native?
I mean, not native, not native to your native Russian, but did you move from Russia to Canada? Was that your trajectory?
Was then USSR, but is now Ukraine. I moved to Israel, actually, and then I moved to Toronto. And
Okay, that was the order in which it was. Okay, so how long was your tenure in Toronto?
I was there for a couple of years, and now I live on the West Coast. So yeah. So I'm a Canadian citizen.
Okay, that's what I thought. That's where I was getting it from. I remember you telling me you're a Canadian citizen. So from your experiences as a Canadian citizen, what's one thing you distinctly love more about American culture? And then tell me one thing you distinctly like more about Canadian culture by comparison.
Yeah, okay, American culture, I think it's a little bit more of a melt pot. There's like a lot more just diversity of every nationality, but also or cultural background, but also like just personality and everything. And Americans tend to be a little bit more blunt, which I actually like. I prefer having that kind of honesty. Canadians tend to be more reserved, more polite, more apologetic, but actually harder to make friends. But what I do like about Canada, we're so much more civil.
Yeah.
And also like, well, there's a difference. Like I always like want to be somewhere else when I'm here, but when I'm in Canada, but when I come back, there's like a certain calm to it, and certain you feel like you're gonna be okay. And also like I'm very proud of the fact that we have a healthcare system that is much more difficult to institute in the U.S. On account that you have more people. But even though I definitely complain about the medical system a lot, and I think there's certain things that we could do better, it's a really amazing thing to have something where people don't have to think, oh, I'm feeling sick today, it's too expensive for me to go see a doctor. So while, again, we can do so much better on how we structure it, the fact that we have it is something, like, I don't like to use the word proud, but, in some ways I'm like proud of the country for having that.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Have you ever seen the movie Canadian Bacon? It was John Candy's last film. Have you seen that?
John Candy so much. I have seen it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Great. It was great.
It's so good. It's so good that I was shocked to find out that was written and directed by Michael Moore.
Are you serious?
Did you know that?
No. What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, Canadian Bacon was written by Michael Moore. Now, speaking of Michael Moore, that opens a whole nother ball of wax, but he used to be a lot more likable than he became in recent years, in my opinion.
Substack. I just subscribed to his Substack like a few days ago, and he sends a lot of emails. He did an amazing thing in particular for documentary films, if you can call them that. I mean, he did commercialize them, so that other people could make films that are sort of in a documentary vein. I mean, they're not traditional documentaries, but I think that's okay if you're like open about it. He has some likability and sometimes not so much. I think his heart is actually probably in the right place. His mind just sometimes wanders.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean,
that was kind of mean, I think.
I'm not sure if his heart's in the right place. I don't know. What I do know is that Canadian Bacon is freaking hilarious. If you guys haven't seen that, that was the last film John Candy ever starred in before he left this earth. And it's really freaking funny.
Shocked.
It's really funny.
I had no idea. That's so shocking that he did it.
Wow. It's shocking because it's actually really funny and really good.
Yeah, it's really funny, and in like the right ways, like.
Right. Yeah, it's so well done, and I actually thought Roger and Me, his first documentary, was really quite good, and I remember seeing that as a young man and found it to be really inspiring. Then it just kind of, I think he's kind of like becomes over the years became like a a victim of his own bubble, right? That we often talk about, wherein he's like, I've become this character. I'm this guy on the left, and so therefore whatever's going on the left, I have to be about that, no matter what it is, rather than do I think this, right?
He did get some hate for his last documentary, the one talking about taking aim at electric vehicles, and that was like, I thought that was kind of brave because that was not a popular thing on the left to talk about.
You know what? I did hear something about that, and I haven't seen the last one, so I can't speak to it. But I remember hearing something about that.
It wasn't like terribly well done, but he was pretty like, the fact that he did it. And then, you know what? I saw Bowling for Columbine, which I guess was probably his most famous one.
Yeah.
I think I liked it at the time, but I wondered what I would think about it nowadays, because I might have been more indoctrinated in some ways into that particular belief. And I know he just released Fahrenheit 9/11 for free. I guess apparently it's highest grossing documentary of all time. I haven't seen it, so maybe over 200 million.
It depends. Yeah, wow. I mean, it depends what he's covering, right? I think Roger Me was very well done. I thought Fahrenheit. I thought Fahrenheit 9/11 was. I think Fahrenheit 9/11 and his first documentary, Roger Me, are his best works in my opinion, because there was a lot to go on. Fahrenheit 9/11 kind of, if he didn't do it, someone had to have done it then, because that was during the era of complete and total neoconservative rule, when the architects of these worldwide expansion wars, quote unquote, spreading democracy throughout the globe, was taking place. And I mean, somebody had to come out with a scathing critique of that stuff, right. On a scale where it was a well enough, scathing documentary that could reach theaters, But I noticed, like, by the time we headed into the later eras, and then by the time you get up to, the Trump era, he just seemed completely unhinged and out of touch from the reasons he started in the first place, in my opinion, from the things that I was seeing. I forget what the documentary he made during the last president's tenure. The name is eluding me right now. Not the one that you spoke of, the one before that. But I couldn't even get through it. It was such a hack job mess. It's
Fahrenheit 11/9. I think.
Oh, so cringe! It was so cringe. It was so bad. It was so bad.
Watched Where to Invade Next. That one was kind of interesting. Some of parts of it.
I think we've all gotten more intelligent in the digital age and the internet age than if you look at documentaries pre-internet. I think if all of us, Sadat, Katherine, and myself, if we all were to watch these Michael Moore documentaries from the pre-internet era, we'd all find them rather silly and not very,
100%.
not very clever.
I don't think they're real. I don't think they're true documentaries. I think they're like his personal opinion. Like, it's the
100%.
equivalent of an op-ed. And
they're op-eds,
Yeah, and I don't like the tactics that he uses. I do want to be clear about that, because he manipulates, the narrative so much. I'm really not a fan of that at all. But he's good at making them, somewhat entertaining. And it did pave the way for certain kinds of storytelling within the documentary side of things. There's one that I like that's Canadian, and he's actually in it. It's called The Corporation. I think it's a little bit more my style of sort of documentary, where it's not really the Michael Moore approach, but it's a little bit more entertaining, in some ways. Yeah, I mean, I have mixed feelings. I used to really dislike him. I don't know why I've changed a little. You know what it is? I haven't seen any of his movies in a long time, so I've become more passive.
Well, I think it's also because I told you that he directed and wrote Canadian Bacon.
That's also it. To be honest, I'm still like, in disbelief. I feel like somebody hacked the Wikipedia entry and like added his name because that.
I know. When I first learned that, I was like, I can't believe this. I just can't believe it's this. He's responsible or something. This cool. And the casting was really well done too. But I don't know. Well, we've been going a little bit over 3 hours here, Katherine. I think I'm going to wind things up here, but this was an absolute pleasure. I hope it was an enjoyable enough experience for you.
It totally was. I really enjoy it. I obviously like talking too much, but
No, my throat appreciates it. Trust me. So, we'll have to get you back on here to gab some more in the future. Sadaf, did you have anything to add?
Nothing other than thank you for coming on with us today. And you guys have just given me a whole heap of stuff to watch during lockdown, so might go and revisit Michael Moore stuff.
Okay, right on. We can get some Sadaf reviews. You guys, you can find Katherine on Twitter. I'm putting her link in the chat. Just give me a moment here. So
if you do movie reviews on the show, you should have them how there's 4 stars. You just do a Doge. Yeah. Just 4 Doges, 3 Doges. Michael Moore, 1 Doge.
Yeah, I like that idea. I think that's cute. I like that idea. So if you don't already follow Katherine on Twitter, give her a follow. She posts a lot of great content. Is there anything else you'd like to plug, Katherine?
Sure. You know what? I'll plug my Substack, which is I write about different topics, some of the ones that we discussed here, and the link is randomminds.substack.com, or you can just write my name, katherinebrodsky.substack.com. Okay,
very good. Katherine Brodsky at substack.com.
Or .substack.com, yeah.
.substack.com. Okay, gotcha. Well, guys, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us on this longer one, and everyone for super chatting and supporting the channel. Really, really appreciate it, guys. And I'd like to thank both of my co-host and my esteemed guest this evening, 2 brilliant, lovely ladies. It was just great to have them on. Katherine, this was awesome. I hope you come back in the future once again.
I love to. It's really fun. Great conversation. Some very interesting topics, and very nice to meet Sadaf as well. And the people tuning in just seem like very cool. So it's nice to see.
Yeah, this isn't the biggest channel, but I honestly think I've been blessed with one of the best communities out there. Everyone here is just really cool, and we got a really cool little vibe here on our corner of the interweb. So you always have an open door policy with us here, Katherine.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Well, we're gonna put a conclusion on this one, guys. Thank you again so much. Tomorrow night I will be back. Friday night at 9:30 p.m. Central Standard Time with Dogecoin millionaire Nick Balls. He will be back with me tomorrow night. And don't forget, put it on your calendars. September 8th. Okay, September 8th. It's going to be a rock and roll twin spin. I have the Tommy Thayer, the lead guitarist of Kiss, will be on this show on September 8th, and then also the frontman and guitarist Jesse Hughes of Eagles Death Metal and Queens of the Stone Age. Both of these guys are going to be on this show on September 8th. So tell your uncles, tell your aunts, tell everyone in loose or tight pants. It's going down here on Steven Steele Live. I want to thank Katherine Brodsky, Sadaf Jadran, and until next time, this is Steven Steele signing out.
If we operate with extreme urgency, then we have a chance of making life multiplanetary. Still just a chance, not for sure. If we don't act with extreme urgency, that chance is probably 0. And the rate of innovation is not going to be constant. It's either going to increase the rate of innovation, or it's going to slow down. If you look at American access to space with Crew, we were able to go to the moon in '69. Then with the space shuttle, we could only go to low Earth orbit. And the space shuttle retired. And then for almost a decade, there was no America had no access to space for its people. So this is a pretty bad trend. It's trending to zero.
Right.
We need a very strong trend in the other direction in order to have any chance whatsoever of making life multiplanetary.
Yep.
So that's the reason for the extreme sense of urgency.
build the technologies necessary to make life multiplanetary. To answer more seriously, if you consider the nature of importance itself and say, how do you tell that anything is important? Well, the lens of history is a helpful guide here. And the more you zoom out, the more you can distinguish the things that are important over a great span of time, the truly important things, versus the things that may seem important in the moment but are forgotten once that moment has passed.